All right.
Okay.
All right. Testing.
And you hear us?
Please tell
Can you
us.
hear
if
us?
Please
Yeah.
say yes. Please say yes.
There'll be a slight delay, but
I heard a yay. Wait, is that
I
premature
think
though?
I think that's a yay. That
They can see us. Yeah.
We're all talking. We're all talking. Blah blah blah. Mike, say something.
Voices.
Voices.
Voices. We need to-
Warren, thank you.
voices. So,
Right.
Mike grossly oversimplified this story. I have to point out, it may be very, very hard to believe, given the reputation I've built over AV, that I was playing a paladin in this 5e game and had
Paladin
and was holding the line between the party, the squishy party, and like a bunch of what was it, shades, something. Was this when we were in Ravenloft? I can't remember exactly.
I thought it was Beastmen or Troglodytes.
Might have
Wait,
been.
now some people are saying can't hear Mike, can't hear Matt.
Oh no, everyone but Matt. That's okay. I have nothing to offer.
I will say, because you can
just
hear
kidding,
me
Mike.
now.
Just kidding, Mike.
Brutal. Okay, assuming everyone can hear me, I want everyone to put a thumbs up in chat for John being the best GM of all time, because he has to do all of this tech by himself, and that is an incredible gift to us. So
I'll do that.
Yay,
let's
John.
not give the props yet, because I need confirmation that can we hear Matt?
Can you guys hear me for real?
They heard. Okay, here's the thing. We also have slow chat on, and they're responding to my paladin story, which I said like 2-3 minutes ago.
They can hear
All right.
everyone.
I hear everyone. Okay.
David
All right.
Streeter, you were on my watch list for screwing with me.
All right. Okay, cool. We're getting thumbs up now. Yeah.
Okay.
Negative X.
Welcome, everybody. If you know friends who also wanted to tune in and they're not aware that we had to start a new stream, please send them the new link so that they can join us. And apologies for that. It was just an audio track mix-up on my end that I was not prepared for, and I had to do some Googling to figure it out, but I did. Anyways, thank you to my players for providing endless amounts of entertainment, especially Mike, while we figure
Mike
that
to the
out.
land.
Anyways, welcome everybody to 3-6 Down the Line, the most criminally underwatched actual play series on the internet. This is our very our only second attempt at live streaming. Our first live stream was way back when we were celebrating 1,000 subscribers back when we were playing Dolmenwood. So it has been a minute since we've interacted with this sort of tech, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking.
I hope we don't have any other weird glitches today.
Yeah, exactly. But fingers crossed. But chances are we probably will. Okay, so I've got multiple screens here. I'm able to share PDFs and secrets and all sorts of stuff. So the way that we're kind of worked about this, we're going to work this through is we're just going to chat amongst the five of us about Arden Vul, about what our thoughts were about the campaign. These guys have some questions for me about secrets that they may have missed, or just the way I kind of handled things. And then thank you to all of our Conqueror level Patreons, our highest tier patrons who all joined in to ask us one question each. We're going to try to get through those as well. And as far as live chat goes, we're going to be monitoring that, of course. If you have questions, we'll take them after the Conquerors. So if you ask questions right now, it's likely that it's just going to get buried in the thread, and we probably won't be able to find it. So probably withhold any sort of pertinent questions you may have for us until a little bit later when we kind of open it up to you guys. Yeah. And stay tuned till the end if you can, because we may have a couple of interesting, announcements or something about that. About, who knows? I mean, talk about things that are maybe not Arden Vul related. Yeah, we know. So
It'll never happen.
Yeah. All right. So Arden Vul, 114 episodes, 6 delves, 2 hours, 10 months of real time, 3 months of in-game time. 20% done.
I need a nap, you guys. Oh, I'm a little tired.
You guys ready for another 15 years of real time playing Arden Vul?
Wow. Although you got to think that the pace would pick up significantly, like with all of the gear and stuff. With all the gear and stuff that we have, come on.
No, man,
because the Goblin Army will pick the pace up.
No, because we become spoiled with choices, right? So then, like, literally, it's like, well, we could do this, or we could do that, or we could do this, we could do, I don't know, maybe. Do you feel like our pace of exploration was faster at the end of the campaign versus the beginning of the campaign?
100%.
I have some thoughts.
You do? Really?
Oh yeah, because I mean, you had all of the teleporting abilities and
That's true.
Yeah.
and all that
I
knowledge.
suppose.
I mean, that gets into the long transit spiel I've gone on so many times on Discord. It doesn't bear repeating, but I do think so much of what's great and what's interesting about Megadungeons is like transit solutions, like how you actually move through places,
Yeah.
which is why it's so good we had those portals available to us. I do suspect that had we successfully killed Gerlad earlier in the stream, that the pacing of our later accomplishments would have been different. But
Yeah.
I think that speaks to, and I'd be curious what you guys think, but I think it speaks to, again, it's like such a beautiful aspect of like a heavily factioned dungeon. And I presume, I don't know, this is something we can ask John about later, right? But presume also like John's own sort of modifications and all that, which is to say that like you meet a compelling character or faction and it is in and of itself source enough for intrigue and growth and evolution that like you could stick with it forever until you feel a sense of closure on it. And therefore like measuring the dungeon progress is almost like a false meter. I feel like it's sometimes compared to just like the relational progress, you know?
Maybe.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think John's implementation of the Feats of Exploration like exponentially increased our ability to interact with the dungeon.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, because like when I was kind of going through, John gave us all his campaign notes after we finished, right? And it was so interesting to go through and read like from John's perspective about each episode. And I realized like it literally took about a third of the campaign or whatever for me to get Goran, my first character, Goran, from level 1 to maybe like I think it was level 5 when he got eaten by the turtle or something like that, right? And dwarves advanced slowly, but it was so different compared to when I played other characters after him with the Feats of Exploration.
Yeah.
Right, because then you can get back up to the kind of that same power level where you left off.
Where did we start that, John? What episode? Do you remember?
Feats of Exploration. That was from the beginning, wasn't it?
From day
Very
one.
beginning?
With Arden Vul, it was day one. Yeah.
Day one.
Maybe what it was getting some higher level characters up there to up
That's what I was going to say, because I remember towards the end, you know, with Mort's 8th level on there, right? You guys were just hogging up XP at the end.
Yeah, I remember. I remember like when Avaricios died, one of the biggest losses of that was that giant XP boost that he was giving to everybody,
right?
Just because he was the highest level character at that time.
It worked
And then Mort had to do all the work.
For having Mort topping out. One of the advantages of Feats of Exploration, if I can, check it out on Drive Through RPG, is that even though you maxed out at 8th, and even though you yourself weren't advancing, you were still contributing your TXP to the overall pool every time you showed up to play, which was most times.
Right.
So that was like an extra 56,000 XP that was in the FOE pool every single time. Right. So you
Let
still
it be known.
Yeah. Yeah, you still contribute to the overall pool for FOE. So
Let it be known that all of my soapboxing has fallen on deaf ears, and we're already talking about how levels equal progress in the game.
Hey, big. Well, not that it has the same old topic, but it does give you survivability to take.
100%. I'm just giving you
a little bit, but think
I gotta
about
give
it,
you shit.
at the end, right? Like there were high level deaths at the at late stages in the campaign, because all it takes is a lucky roll or an unlucky roll from anybody, and you're a 7th level druid is just as dead as a 5th level dwarf.
Speaking of, just a specific call out, those beads of force saved our asses. And those what I'll call predators, the sort of like rock eating, I forgot the beast's name exactly, but I genuinely thought we were going to TPK there. I was like, oh no.
Wait. I got to ask this because it just popped up in the stream. So somebody was like, Gerlad's doesn't even rate as a faction in Arden Vul. Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah, that's one of the mats.
That's insane.
What up, Matt?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that our fellow community members in my Scheming with John channel that you guys couldn't see were constantly laughing over, was and it's probably the biggest revelation for the entire our Arden Vul campaign was that your primary focus, like your ultimate guy that you were just
hated the most.
Yeah, was Garelad, and he wasn't even a faction write-up in the game.
Man.
So
that's
the master of monkeys was not a faction. He was just like a side piece. He was just like a window dressing NPC.
Yeah, exactly. I can
did
show
see
you
in the notes you showed us that he's only like second level in the module.
So you guys, my players, you can see this. You guys can see this in the on the PDF here. Is that here's the factions that are in the that have write-ups in Arden Vul. These faction write-ups are like amazing because he really goes into like with the goblins here, for instance. Where is it? Just using them, you have rulers, resources, attitude towards adventurers, their areas of control and their ignorance, their motives, possibilities for expansion or contraction. And then he has relations with other factions. So all of the other factions, he writes out exactly what So it's for a GM, it's wonderful. Like the faction write-ups, it just gives you a very clear springboard in which to operate on. So I always use these as the basis for role-playing factions, and then I would extrapolate, like whenever you guys would upset the balance of factions in some sort of way, I would use these write-ups as the basis for extrapolation of how they would change. So you have all these wonderful workups, but level it's level 2, by the way, the Well of Light with the baboons and Garelad. Like nothing. Like they give you like a write up about what's going on in the level and what Garelad's motivations are and stuff like that, but it's nowhere near as detailed. There's no more faction write up because his motives are very simple. Right? He wants to. He doesn't want anything but to
be left alone.
He's just paranoid, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just got to ask, and I don't think Richard is on here, but Joseph Browning is, like, why do you put this guy with this unkillable army of death monkeys right in the middle of the dungeon where all of these levels just channel into it? Like, it wasn't like we were seeking it out. Like, literally every time we went down a corridor, we're like, fuck, we're back in goddamn Monkey Town.
I think it's just us, Mike. I think it's us more than anything. I think we just gravitated towards that.
Well, we did
not on purpose, but
I think to validate my our sense that Plunger Town was like uniquely Jaquaized versus other floors that we never got to is probably a product of just like overexposure, right? Like, so there were a lot of things linking to it, but I'm sure that would be true many other places. Take the alien levels, for instance. We know there were like 2-3 different elevator shafts, right? That would take us through it. But yeah, it's interesting.
I should say the Garelad's level did have the Library of Thoth in it, which
that's the big thing.
We cottoned on to kind of early on as something we really wanted to find. So we were bringing ourselves back there as much as all of the different ways to get there.
Speaking of, go ahead, John.
Well, and I also wanted to say, I think another thing about that was the way I think it was Cisco just obliterated Squeegee.
Oh yeah.
For me, it changed my feeling about the level, about our opponents, and about their power level. Yeah. And it was no longer just like, those are monkeys we should avoid. It was like, everyone here has to die at some point.
I do think that, like, oh, sorry, Matt, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, thinking back to that fight, I think so much could have hinged differently. We sucked in that fight. I remember like fighting Cisco. We were all like confident, and we like unleashed a full round of attacks. And I think everybody missed.
Yeah, we had terrible rolls.
Right? I think one person hit for like 1 point of damage. And the way these things are structured, I'm probably thinking that, it easily could have gone the other way. If we all hit and rolled high, I don't know how many hit points these things have, but
they have like in excess of 50, if I read the stats correctly, like in John's notes. And here's the thing about that. We may have rolled bad for that first round, but I don't think those things are ever meant to be fought. I don't not in like a stand-up like fighting scenario. Like maybe if we'd all gotten to like 10th level and had like crazy armor class or like whatever, maybe, right? But I don't think you're ever supposed to interact with them as if like it's an obstacle that you're just supposed to go up and punch.
That's what Joseph Browning is saying too, like in his opinion, that it's meant to be avoided. You know, and I played him like that too. Like they was never like you're fighting a baboon. It's like you're fighting a horde, and watch out, you hear them coming. Right, here they come.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I do think that level speaks.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did you have numbers on that horde? Like, did we make a dent even at all?
You did make a dent, yeah. So that's another thing too, is that they have faction strengths, like basically the full numbers and everything like that, and they give you instructions about how they, what their capabilities are in recouping losses and things like that. You know, I took those as very slight guidelines. You know, like I was not actually like tallying like baboons that you were knocking off. It was just I kind of was like, oh, you destroyed a bunch there, or you barely made a dent there, and I did just adjust things on the fly.
Yeah. I'm sure we want to talk about other things, but I just want to like circle to one other thing. You know, the beauty of Plunger Town is, and the library is an aspect of this. The baboons are aspect of Scarelad's nature. It's like the theming is so strong. And again, this is like a forest for the trees thing, maybe, but the theming is so strong that it is incredibly compelling. It feels significant. Anything we experience as players is going to feel significant, right? That's just like projection on our parts. I'm sure you touch a thing and it's the most important thing in the world. But I mean, we got a guy out the gate in a world, again, as far as we know, that is either by the nature of its writing or John's sort of interpretation, morally dubious, politically fraught, et cetera, et cetera. There's not a lot of capital B big bad guys that we meet. We got a guy torturing people like out the gate. Now he has his motivations for it, but it's very hard as a D&D player to see something like that and not think very sort of binary sort of moral assessments of that thing. You're like, okay, this guy is one, evil, two, powerful, because the power is expressed in his action, right? It's a power dynamic that's very literalized. And we need to intercede on that, right? Like that's a big thing. The other thing being the library, it's like, yeah, source of knowledge is, again, this might be good for a later conversation, but like knowledge is such a tool in this setting. It is the ultimate sort of tool, I would suggest. And so it is
who's the god of the adventure, right?
Yes, exactly. And cool. Last thing I'll say is we found the first library. We found a second secret library. On Discord, someone alluded to another secret library. And I don't know if they were trolling us or not, but I'm very curious about that before we move on to another topic.
Was there another secret library?
Let's see.
I did the David and I ambushed John with a thing. He wasn't. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
How you done it?
Well, there's the main library, the secret library, and then there's, let's see,
a third library maybe.
I can't remember what they were all right next to each other.
Chat can chime
where
in
he keeps
too.
all of his private books.
No, there's a secret library the main library is where they're called logovores, by the way. The
little baboons.
Oh, the little monkey. Oh, yeah.
Great name, by the way, logovore, like eaters of words.
Yeah.
The secret library, and then there was like the librarian's chamber, which was also forgotten. Right. There was a couple of things in there as well. But
I thought we got that though. I thought we
got all three. You got them all.
Okay.
A lot of that is not my fault, but a lot of the stuff that was in the secret library and in the main library were added by me. Most importantly, being the motivation of Isocritus to be hunting down the locations of the regalia. I made that up.
Oh, you made me kill Isocritus, John. Everyone's been blaming me all this time.
Basically, it was like I mentioned the regalia that piqued your interest, and then I leaned into it because it piqued your interest, and I made Isocritus then be that was his motivation. He was never hired by Lady Alexia. He was his own. As published, he was never. That was me. I made that up.
John, you dog! I love it.
He wasn't.
The whole character or his placement.
No, the character was there, but the fact that he worked for Lady Alexia was John's invention.
As written, he was just his own agent, like his own adventurer, basically. And he had worked. He wanted to get to the secret library in order to research shit. It was very vague, and he worked out a deal with Garelad as like, please don't hurt me. I just want to look at the library. Do you mind? And Garelad was like, okay, just fine, because Garelad doesn't really give a shit about written works. So But then I added the whole thing where he was like a well-known adventuring sage. Then Lady Alexia then hired him, and then what Lady Alexia wanted him to do was to actually find the secrets of the regalia.
I love that.
I then
This is
planted.
pretty cool.
I then planted the regalia hints. There was one session where there was like the hints for like all 4 or 5 of them in the secret library. That was all me. And then following up after the Neferet debacle, when Neferet, I made Neferet's motivation because she was the last holder of the Iron Circlet of Gonor, one of the regalia, that she wanted to get the rest of the regalia as her primary motivation when she awoke. And so she beelined to the secret library as well, which was, of course, all made up because that knowledge was never really there in published form.
That's amazing. Oh my God. I gotta say, one, that's incredible, John. I'm so impressed. 2, all of the sort of bloviating I at least did about the political sort of, I mean, this is fun to me if it isn't obvious, but like about the political aspirations and like sort of like, I know, ethics, whatever, behind it is contingent too on your interpretation, which makes this so much more personal and experience. It's really cool.
Well, the Alexia politics in Burdock's Valley, that was all as written. So
I know, but I was both on camera and in our like private discussions debating the power structure there, right? Like what it means for Isocritus to have a deal with Gerlad or be working with Alexia was a big motivation for me, whether people realize it or not, in killing Isocritus. Right. Not because I thought Isocritus was like a really, well, I mean, that's a whole conversation, but it was a shrewd decision, not purely an impulsive decision, though it like played out impulsively on camera, right? Yeah. And it had a lot to do with partial, trying to interpret partial information, extrapolate what that looked like long term, and that's what I'm saying is really amazing because we're both doing that, sort of like both in parallel and interaction with each other in interesting ways.
David, I have a feeling that your paranoia has given John more campaign hooks.
Oh, sure. but I'll say again, yes, paranoia. Like we do a lot of, again, peek behind the curtain. I think we've alluded to it on Discord, right? Like we, to be very clear, don't script anything that happens on screen. That should be obvious, I think. Too much goes wrong, right? but because we only record 2.5 hours and John has so much material to interact with, we create a sort of like loose agenda that we try to keep to and often don't for each episode private and just discuss it privately on our Discord. Right. And part of that, when things are really at a boiling point, does involve some level of like speculation on our part and then like voting. So my paranoia behind the scenes will be, well, what if Alexia, is X? Right. And Mike will go, you're a Muppet, David. Why are you saying that? His favorite word. Right. And Matt will be the voice of reason, and Ted will say, well, what if we did this? And then we give John that goal. Right. And then we see where it goes. And again, and from that point onward, we have no idea what's going to happen because John is, as he just said, authoring so much of his own in addition to the print material. And that's what's so exciting. I don't know.
I think that's useful for anyone that's on this stream that is planning on running Arden Vul, even if you have like longer sessions or whatever. I think just because of the scope of the adventure, giving John like at least a preliminary plan of like what we want to attempt to do in the next session was probably pretty helpful for John's planning. I mean, it still took a shit ton, but
we did that
fun
like
for us too.
We started instituting that like halfway through or so. Because we reached like a crisis point where it was there was no set plan, so I was being stymied in most episodes because I just couldn't anticipate what you guys were going to do.
Yeah, well, and it's worth saying that like we're recording for a couple hours, and an average game if we were playing in person would be 4. So even things like declaring our objective for the next session would be occurring at the end of a 4-hour session in private. Trying to do that and not, frankly, have a bunch of dead air. I mean, I think everyone's like appreciative of our like banter and sort of like that, but not have a bunch of dead air or like pauses is hard. So it became like John said, absolutely crucial for all of us. Probably, I don't know, like 20 episodes into AV or something like that. But
I think it became really important once we had more than one avenue to go forth, right? Like it was like once we could go down corridor A, B, C, D, or E, then we had to let them know ahead of time which corridor to go down.
And I'll add in like one of the big changes that happened, and this was fairly late in the campaign, was when we all kind of agreed as a group to slow the world clock a little bit. because early on there was a lot of time pressure, and we felt it very much, especially in our debates about what do we do, because when there's a fast clock ticking in the background, and you know that all these factions and all these things are moving at the same time, one element that was taking up a lot of our kind of energy about deciding what to do next was we had to decide which one was the most important in terms of time, right? It wasn't, we couldn't just do the thing that we wanted to do the most. We had to like pay attention, and we had to come to a consensus on
a hierarchy.
If we do this first, that means we are giving up on these things. It was a zero-sum game.
I still have like,
well, and a lot of the crosstalk that most I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of the crosstalk that happens at a table when you're playing a 4 or 5 hour session, we had to do on Discord, right? To David's point, like, hey, what if we did this? So I just thought it was like, it's an efficiency thing, I think, for us.
Yeah.
I think it's also worth saying that you guys, I don't know how much this you saw on camera, but in our Discord, there was a lot of talk about, okay, if we decide to do A, for example, let's go to Gosterwick and rest and identify magic items or whatever, then guess who is plotting against us back in the dungeon, right? We better not go to Gosterwick. We better stay here, because if we go away, then these two factions will unite. And when we come back, there'll be, a wall of goblins waiting to kill us or whatever. And actually, I have a question for John. Like, I think this was one of the ones I submitted, but how much of that was just paranoia, and how much of that were you actually planning into the faction play and stuff as we debated on whether to go to Gosterwick or rest or whatever?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Like,
so when we were having these conversations about like, should we rest? Should we go to Gosterwick? Should we do this action versus that action? And part of the conversation would be, if we do that, then these factions will do something, and we can't afford to have them do that.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, like it's I had a calendar, so certain faction things would occur if you guys didn't interfere, and those were the clocks that you guys were sort of pushing against. So yeah, things would have happened, but I was trying to make clear in our own Discord a lot of the times, like sometimes that's okay, like the dungeon being mutable and changing is okay to have happen in the background, because regardless, it just is. It introduces new interesting twists, new challenges, all that sort of stuff. The only thing that's different is things change, right? But the danger is still present, So
this is a big,
I kind of feel I have mixed feelings about our decision to reduce clocks a little bit. Like I understand, and I wouldn't go back and change it if I had the choice, but easing back up on the clocks allowed you guys a little bit more freedom and a little bit less stress. However, it doesn't introduce what I think is a really good tension element, which is the time. Clock thing. So, and I think that's like a key thing in OSR play is to kind of keep that pressure on all the time. So you must act in, and it's just one of those OSR things too, where like there's a dilemma. It's another dilemma. It's another risk versus reward sort of choice, right? Like, do we take this path? Do we take this path and address this issue and let these other paths resolve on their own? Is a tough choice to make. And but what I was trying to get across is that it's okay to just pick one and let the other stuff happen, So I
have a lot of thought here. Yeah, I have a lot of thought here that I want everyone else to comment on too, because yes, I think speaking for myself, my favorite aspect of this campaign and of campaigns in general, as we as a group have grown together, and I do think a lot of this comes from the trust of like a friend group, understanding each other, is the clock, is the faction play, is the emergent sort of like stressors, all this sort of stuff. Right? It's amazing. It is hard as an issue of scope when there are a lot of source material, factions, and so it can be compounding in that way. But it's hard for the reason that John mentioned, which is that like underlying all of this is an ongoing lesson, experience, etc., on our tolerance, our threshold for what we deem as failure, but is just change, right? And that's such a hard thing to decenter, I think, as a player in role-playing games, right? The idea that things will occur outside of the scope of your control because you're so used to being at the center of the action, right? And we all think, oh yeah, like we know that, but then when you're in it, guys, everyone can attest, when you're in it, it's hard to let go of that, right? It's hard to let go of Geralt. It's hard to let go the Nefret threat or whatever. Codswallop, I think, was for instance,
That's
one of the best consequences we experienced in the game that caused us a lot of pain, good pain, to be clear, right? It was incredibly rich and inspired one of the best arcs that came afterwards, but also has the effect of making us worried about consequences of its type in the future. So inuring yourself to that balance and kind of like being zen about it is really hard, and that's why it's good.
David, so much of OSR play relies on minimizing risk, right?
Yes,
so when you let the clock go forward, especially in something like the Codswallop incident, right?
Yeah.
Letting time go by without dealing with something, it can feel like you're not minimizing risk. Like we left that giant loot pile like exposed to losing it, and in my mind, it was ours, right? Because we didn't handle it the first time. So it's almost like sometimes like that tension that is created by OSR, like spending 20 minutes looking at a door, looking at the trap. By the way, sidebar, I would have fucking laughed my ass off if Mort had died from a poison needle trap.
I was sure he was going to.
At the very end of the campaign with your 3 saving throw, because you were just like, just open the door. I was just like, what are you doing? Anyway.
You rode the lightning. We've all done it once or twice.
I know, but OSR is spent on minimizing risk. Oh, I'm gonna check this, I'm gonna check that, I'm gonna do that. And that's why I think a lot of people bounce off of it. I mean, a lot of modern RPG games, they just want to be able to roll a die and just have their character just know that there's something there.
Yeah.
There's an omnipotence.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. But like and so when the factions are moving and they're doing things that might be like against you or adversely affecting you, like the instinct is to get in there and to prevent them from trying to hose you over. So anyway,
one might say that an interventionist policy is not always the most pragmatic policy in a political scheme. I'll leave it at that. I will say, and I want to hear everyone else, but I'll just as a quick note, will say that like John, I felt complicated about slowing the clocks, but I think both that and John being amenable to things like changing the magic rules a little bit, because for instance, a lot of that was for me, I wasn't even bothering to scribe scrolls because I didn't want to like expend time, right? And that's not a failure on anyone's part. It's just that there's so much compelling, again, it's like a positive influence on that. There's so much compelling stuff to do that at least for me, and maybe it would have been different for someone else, that was like much lower in the priority chain because I was enjoying the character enough without adding spells. But allowing me to add spells made the game more interesting. And it's a great example of nothing is hard and fast. And a good GM like John will be willing to make small sacrifices or bends in order for the bigger picture. And I think
that was specifically too for the nature of a closed matrix dungeon as well.
Yes.
Like in a general D&D campaign where you've got a mixture of wilderness and dungeon and lots of other stuff going on. I think the by the book magic rules are fine. Because you have a much grander scope and a greater timeline and all that kind of stuff. But where you've got like a very small area, closed matrix, where there's like a lot of shit going on at once, then I think reducing those times for research really works well, because as we said a number of times, that's a key feature of old school Magic user classes is that research, and no one, like, I never did it when I was a kid, but it's so fun, as Matt can attest, because Matt was the guy that actually was doing a lot of that research stuff. I would recommend to all GMs that regardless of the type of D&D campaign you're running, to reduce those times and allow them to be accessible at first level for spellcasters, so they can really lean into that, because it really is a great creative outlet in an otherwise very limiting class where when you're first level, you only have like one spell, right? And everyone always makes fun of that. But if you open it up and say like, hey, you can also scribe scrolls and make potions and all that kind, and do it quickly, relatively quickly. I just think it just opens up the class a lot.
It was really fun. I really enjoyed making those, just like thinking about like, putting context into other similar spells and trying to level them and
shit too.
Right. Yeah. Make it relevant to what you're doing, but something that that was really fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it makes a lot of sense for something like Arden Vul, Megadungeon, and you're talking about the clocks and like everything is constantly moving and happening. It makes less sense, I think, for if you're doing a campaign where it's small dungeon rest period, small dungeon rest period, which is that's the sort of old school play we played when I was a kid. You know, you did your, you found the rock, you removed the rock aside, you went down, you got out the loot, you came up, you went back to town, you caroused, whatever. You spent some time researching spells, you learned the new language, whatever it was, and then downtime. It might be a year between adventures because you made so much money you could live on it. You know, so
that's a good point, Ted, because it's like downtime is an essential element of old school games, right? Where then you can just apply the rules as written with those long periods of time. But as we discovered, even though we weren't opposed to downtime in Arden Vul, we just found out through playing that downtime is just not conducive in the way that we were playing. Now, if I had played it as written, where there's the much larger picture of like Burdock's Valley, all the politics going on, all the different towns, all the different factions outside the dungeon, and the dungeon is just a place that you go to get rich and then go back, then we could have left those rules as it is. But we made, I mean, I pushed it, but we all agreed to make it a conscious decision to focus on the dungeon. And therefore we had limited scope and limited time. So
Well, also, you know, to be honest, I'm sorry, Ted, go ahead.
Well, I think given that, like we've actively decided to move away from the valley and Gosterwick and stay in the dungeon, and Kraz had nothing to do with that, I'm sure. I think the decision to change some of those rules made tremendous sense and absolutely made it more fun.
What I was just going to add on to that was it took us a long time to set up in the dungeon something that was considered a safe haven. Where
hard to do,
it was, I mean, I don't think it's as hard to do. I was kind of reading through some of the stuff on the Discord now that we are part of conversations of people that are running it. And a lot of people's like campaigns, they set up like, you know, safe havens inside the dungeon fairly early on, it seems like. And I think that part of that was just our own paranoia, right? Because immediately, as soon as we set up that safe haven, we just automatically assume that we're going to lose it any minute, right? Like Dalton Darlings being the perfect example of that. We're like, hey guys, we cleared out this area of the dungeon for you. You can have this. We come back the next day, they're all like, not Dalton Darlings. Was it Dalton? It was, right? It was Dalton. It was, Dalton's Darlings.
Yeah, Dalton's
Darlings. They all got murdered in their beds, right? And so we're like, oh, this is not safe. There's nothing safe here. So.
Joseph Browning also made a good comment about their structure there. It's also how we decided to present the material. Everything outside the AV site is there only as a framework for GMs to hang their preferences on.
Nice.
To be clear, there's like not a lot of in the published version of like fully fleshed out areas outside of Burdock's Valley, except for Gosterwick. But Rick on the Facebook group that he runs has some supplementary material there, and I think they're working on stuff in the future as well for fleshing out some like adventure sites in Burdock's Valley. So it's pretty cool.
You know, it'd be really interesting is, and we've joked around about this. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but you know, coming back 5 years later, the guys come back from their jaunt and Mort is doing his thing or whatever. Like, how would the valley, how would Gostrick, how would the top of the cliff have changed? And you'd probably have a whole new set of factions to worry about, and a new clock, and you know, there might be a little keep on top of the cliff face. You know, the Kraz is still around, maybe, I don't know. You'd have to redevelop the whole thing for 5 years.
This is what's so fun, Ted, right? Like for sure. I mean, all play is valid play, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we've discussed this enough, but like when we talk about theory craft or games that encourage a lot of like projection forward, it's always character centric, right? Like, what will my build look like? How powerful will I be, et cetera, et cetera. I don't love that. I used to do that a lot. Me and Mike were really guilty min-maxers in that regard in the 3.5 days. Min-maxers. It's how they want you to play. Anyone who says modern games don't want you to min-max is lying through the teeth. That's all the conversation.
So true.
It's so fucking. It's just, oh my god. Hey, I want you to adopt an affect of rejecting how we want you to play the game. Anyway, so sorry. But theory craft as like a world emergence, and that's like even when we use kind of kidding, tongue-in-cheek paranoia in our discussion of our own sort of internal conversations, that's the theory craft that's so like rich for me, because it is like extrapolating, imagining a frontier of change, right? Frontier is a loaded word, but that's really, at least for me, engaging with like what was so exciting as a young reader of Tolkien or any fantasy book. It's about the unsaid, right? It's about what could be beyond the scope of what is in front of us. That's what fantasy as a genre for me is about, like, period, right? It's not about the present, it's about the beyond. And I think things like Arden Vul are so rich and so powerful because they give you so many keystones, but there's still so much beyond, right? Yep. And so the more we engaged with that methodology, the more fun it was for me, right? All right, that's my spiel.
Can I ask a couple, like, maybe more slightly specific questions that I
let's go
earlier this week?
Yeah, let's hit some cues.
What was up with the creepy tree outside the pyramid?
The tree, yes. Yeah, that's an early callback.
Yeah, but it was like moving, and like at one point Matt was trying to hug it, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" That thing was
Willow, man.
Hell yeah!
So it was it was in the forum right outside the pyramid, outside the Tower of Scrutiny. So it was an awakened tree. So not a treant, right? But it was actually a tree that was awakened at some point in the past, and so it was sentient. It was basically asleep, so it was very difficult to wake. You'd have to, like, you know, maybe even hurt it to wake it. A druid, though, would have been able to waken it pretty easily. And then it had, because it had been there for a long time, it could impart secrets about different. It had a lot of knowledge about the different egresses from the ruins into Arden Vul. So it was basically like a one-stop shop. Like if you wanted to know like every possible entrance from the outside into Arden Vul, that tree knew. It knew the nature of the obelisk secrets with the silver onks,
which was
and had some it knew some other surface ruin secrets too, but it almost required like a druid to be able to like communicate with it in a manner.
If only we'd had one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, it's funny because that came up, like that was on my list. Like I think even Avaricios had a speak with plants kind of spell. I'm not sure, but I knew like early on it was one of the list of things that we wanted to do, but it always got like, well, that would be nice, but we got to get a safe haven, or that would be nice, but we're running for our lives, or we've just been teleported in this place, we don't know where it is. So yeah, it'd be nice to talk to the tree at some point. Yeah, but we can't.
Yeah.
John gave us a danger vibe from that tree. You're absolutely right, Ted.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Someone was sitting under it in our very like early on or whatever, and John telegraphed that the branches were moving or something like that. Yeah. And then we yeeted right off of that thing like right away. We were like, bye.
Did I pee on that tree? I think I peed on that tree.
It appreciated your water.
That's one of those things, though, I added in, which I think is a good thing to do with like OSR play, is telegraphing, as we've talked about in numerous detoxes, is like as written, there's no way to even know that tree had anything weird about it, except that it's a lone tree, a big tree. But it doesn't write that it gives off any sort of impression of being anything other than a normal tree. So I made up that it made like a little rustle. Right.
Hey, John, did you also make up that those venomous plants would eat Vargr, or?
No, that was a real monster.
What was the shambling mound?
What a shame. John, I've got a question for you about telegraphing, which I think is relevant here. So you made that up about the tree moving. Mm-hmm. Now, I know I've run games where I've, in order to give some clue or something like that, I've telegraphed something, and the players have, as we did in this case, wildly misinterpreted the telegraph. Do you have any occasions you could think of where we did something, totally off what you thought we were going to do based on the telegraph, or where you like, oh, I shouldn't have done it that way, that was really not worked, or whatever? I know this is not one of the questions in advance, but it just occurred to me.
We're going off plan already.
If you want to table it for later, we can do it for another detox or something.
We're tangenting already, gang.
I do it already, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of anything like right off the bat.
All right, that's fine. Because I've had regrets.
I'll give a classic example. There's a reason everyone always wants to fight. Not everyone, but the murder hobo trope, I think, starts from the fact that almost everyone tries to fight a bartender when they start playing D&D. Yeah. And again, it's that projection thing where you meet someone, and if they're not immediately friendly to you, most players will be like, they're suspicious. This person,
like Roger?
In Kronos and Estelle's case, they were suspicious. But I do think, have you guys experienced that before?
Oh, yeah.
In player groups, the sense of like, oh, this person wasn't immediately nice to me, so I was rude to them. And then if the GM plays them as responding to my rudeness, that's confirmation, right? It's kind of the cycle there.
Yeah. But David, like how I was really nice to Triv Lock, and then they ended up murdered.
But
I don't know
David, to that point, you've been suspicious of people that have been extremely nice to you right off the bat.
Which ones? Cite examples.
The 5 fingers, right? That's one of mine, right? Like, okay, John. So here's a question that came up. 5 fingers never did anything to us at all. every opportunity that we had to interact with them, we were immediately incredibly suspicious and guarded from them. Were they friends dangling out there just waiting to be our buddies?
Yeah.
Or were they working against us?
Nope. Their purpose was not to be your friends. But if you had been friendly with them, they would have returned the favor. As written, let's bring it up, shall we?
All right.
So in this published thing, they have a wonderful NPC appendix, which has a bunch of adventuring parties. The first one's Dalton's Darlings, which is what we used initially, and then the next one is the Five Fingers of Destiny, and they give you a general view here of what their general alignment is. So neutral, good.
Cool.
Okay. And then which is really cool, they give you a general ethos, goals, and motives. And then they kind of give you breakdowns of each of the members, and they give you 3 different versions of those parties: low level, mid level, and high level, all with different equipment. Fucking amazing.
Okay. Oh, that's really cool.
So I made up, obviously, Roger. I mean, Roger's personality right here is, let's see, a short and stout, wide grin, good teeth, strong scent of pomade. I did keep this. He affects loose and colorful robes in a turban. He appears slightly goofy, quite clever, and can be ruthless if needed. So I made the voice, but it basically aligns with this description. But it gives you
compete. Sorry.
It gives you a general ethos and a goals and motives of the party in general. So in the ethos, they consider themselves to be dashing, bold, and highly experienced. They tend to make them appear blithe and overconfident. They are not unwilling to chat with neophytes. They might even come to the aid of an embattled party, provided the odds were good. So like they're generally just. They were
decent guys.
Yeah, they're they're decent guys. They just Roger was annoying. That's all. And I was careful not to. I don't recall any point where the Five Fingers were acted actively against you.
Yeah,
what I was trying to do every time that they were mentioned or that they were encountered, I was try to reinforce the fact that they were collecting the silver onks. That was the key thing, and I was hoping that you guys would be like, what are those about, or is there a way that we can help you with those? Is there something that what are you guys looking for? We can trade a secret, like we're looking for this. What are you guys looking for? And that went through the entire campaign, because the Ankh secret is like one of the big secrets of Arden Vul, where if you take the Ankh and if you take one of the Ankhs and you go to each one of the obelisks on the surface and you place them in their place, it opens up a huge portal in the southern part of the ruins. I think it's near the lake, that actually opens up a Rudishva, not a Rudishva. I think it was actually Arcantian built access to the bridge, to the Shining Beacon Bridge.
Oh.
So
that's really funny, because I had worked out that if we put the Ankhs in at least one obelisk, something was going to happen with the Shining Beacon.
It did talk about the beacon, yeah.
But then when we learned that the Shining Beacon was like phased into the rock, I thought, oh, I'm totally wrong. Yeah. None of that's going to happen. Oh, I misinterpreted that completely.
It's a really cool way to so it was going to be a classic AV coming in from the backside, because you guys managed to get to the bridge without using that entrance, right? So you didn't really need it. So in that final encounter with the Five Fingers and Kerbog Khan in the engine room, if you had allied with them or decided to parlay with them, they would have told you about that entrance and been like super psyched to like share that secret with you. And then you would have followed them to the to where they went, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, we've already been here."
that would have been very funny. I'll say 2 small things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
One, your description of Roger, turban wearing, colorful, quirky, is an immediate reason that Onweir had to kill him, because they're in the marketplace of platonic, sort of characters. There can't be 2, baby. But I will say, again, it goes to the bartender conundrum in that. By the nature of its lethality and its factions and all that, it is Arden Vul is, at least in our experience of it, a hyper competitive survival space. It is hard, and I still advocate this from the start. We played scumbags. Even if we had nice moments, we mostly played scumbags, and it's hard not to assume that is the case with everyone, because survival is so, so difficult. An adventuring party, by definition, feels like a threat.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
doesn't mean they were, but that again, I think that's some of the interesting friction that occurs between sort of like the meta level and the fictional level.
I think if Richard Barton ever like added the AV club to his like next edition, he would be like extremely paranoid, violent, prone to betray,
murderous,
prone to betray their allies, murderous intent. Like I think we would be the worst adventuring party in all of our.
Sure.
Well, no, I agree, but just one more thing. Sorry. Again, I think it is a lot of this might be the way that I view the world space, but I think it's very easy to adapt heroic sensibilities in a confined narrative space. It's very easy to pursue heroism when like the things are very sort of like binary or defined, and it's harder to be heroic in a space in which like nuance exists, right? Because heroism is kind of a myth.
True, but I want to add a counterpoint that we never really explored, because we did kind of lean into that zero-sum game. Everybody's a competitor. But one thing that I think that we missed out on in a couple of places was that larger, farther on down the reward that can come from finding people that you can trust and you can cooperate with.
Right.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Like Isocritus was one. I think
we missed that.
The Five Fingers was another one. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done the things that we did. They led to interesting choices, and the logic was sound and whatever. But it's not the only way to go, right? Like sometimes cooperating is kind of like that checkers move where you can jump over. Right.
I totally agree.
Turbo Khan actually malevolent? I got to know right now, because we all assumed that he wanted our blood for something nefarious, and everyone was afraid to, interact with him.
Yeah. So as written in the book, I think his alignment was neutral evil, I believe, by the AD&D alignments, but it was more of a in that definition of neutral evil where you're completely self-serving. Right, that sort of thing. Right, so it's less about like
the AV club.
I have nefarious schemes to screw people over. It's just more like I will do whatever it takes to get what I want. And I kind of played up that aspect basically. But he's a really cool character because he's looked upon friendly. He's basically friendly with almost every faction because he sends out his little automatons and can interact, and he can sell secrets and all that kind of thing. But yes, his blood, now I can't remember exactly what the blood does. I'm sure someone in chat who's played the game can fill us in. It did have like, it wasn't as nefarious as David had anticipated. It wasn't something like where you should absolutely not give him your blood. Like it was worth it to give it if you really needed some information or some piece of tech that he had. You know what I mean?
The first hint we got in the early sessions, the first descent into Arden Vul, included him as described as being a liar who has an army of the undead. Now that
was a false rumor.
False rumor, right? Which is awesome because I assume that could be the case, right? But like. That's the sort of first touchstone of discernment that we have to engage in. And to Matt's point, right? I think the Five Fingers are a really great example of us getting ahead of information, us making assessments without that information. I will defend to the day I die the Isocritus murder because this is a thing. This is an issue of context collapse, I think, in a lot of gaming. And I'm projecting here, guys. Obviously, I'm biased. But the information we do have out the gate about Isocritus, regardless of his missives with Alexia and all that, is that he is willing to assist a guy who is mind-controlling apes and torturing people to death. That, to me, is neutral evil at best. And I think even now, I think a lot of people feel like the Isocritus murder was a purely chaotic act, and it was very much rationalized on my part, whether I said it explicitly as the character, as a person who was complicit to a really horrific criminal, a very evil criminal who was doing two of the things that I consider the worst things someone can do, and was willing, as a neutral evil person would do, to do the moral calculus of being accepting of it. That wasn't a person that I needed to read journals of, right? To know that I didn't like. Now, that doesn't mean everyone else felt that way, but I think that's very different than the Five Fingers, right? Yeah. Right. Or even Kerbal Khan, because Kerbal Khan isn't someone we interacted with in the immediate sense to know. I'm curious what you guys think.
Well, also, we did hear in the chat about what he uses the blood for. It's to scry and to divine and scry on people, which makes
what we thought. Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
Makes complete sense, because that's how he's getting all of his secrets. Rather than him being out adventuring, he's just like, oh, look, there's Lothar. Yeah. He's wandering around in Rudishvin, like the bridge. Is that how he found that area? I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting.
So that ties into one of the questions you guys wanted to ask me too, was like in the engine room battle, like, I told you what the Five Fingers would have given you. If you had dealt with Kerbal Khan, that was going to be a crux moment for you, because if you had been honest with him about what your motivation was for being in the engine room, he would have shared his honest revelation as well, which you guys already picked up on the fact that his obsession was Rudishva tech. Okay. Mm-hmm. So on his level where he resides, where his stronghold was, he had actually, this is how he became to power basically, is he was like he got booted from like the Collegium in Arkantos or something like that, went to Arden Vul, and he actually discovered one of the ancient medical pods of the Rudishva.
Oh, I knew it.
And there was like a ton of good tech in there. And that's what allowed him, and because it was like medical tech, he was able to like graft shit onto his body and all this sort of, like he himself, like his actual form is very much like an Adeptus Mechanicus sort of guy, from 40K. Like it's all like, like decked out with like all, he was like a more decked out version than what Lothar ended up being. And
that's rad.
And so his whole focus was, his main goal was to get as much Rudishva tech as possible. So if you had dealt with him in the engine room and told him that you were looking for drive rods, he would have been like, me too. And just because it was interesting Rudishva tech that he read about, but he had no idea that it was essential to like reactivating a shuttle. He just knew that they were drive rods for the Shining Beacon, right? But he just wanted the tech for tech's sake. But if you had actually intimated that you needed it for an actionable shuttle launch, he would have been, I am with you. Like, and the key thing here was that he was one of the very few people that had the knowledge to make the deuterium helium compound. He could have been your jump fuel guy.
So I thought that was something. To take the shuttle. He wouldn't have murdered us to take the shuttle. He would have wanted to go along with us.
If you treated with him fairly and honestly, he would have returned in kind, because it aligned with his goals. Right, he would have been all about taking off in that shuttle, because that's like the apotheosis of everything that he's been studying for years, right? So, did I say that word right? I think I did.
Yeah. Can I ask one of my other questions?
Well, before we jump on to another topic, I just wanted to quickly say that relative to all of this being nice to people and being paranoid about other people, I feel that we absolutely handled the Beastman thing really well. I'm really happy with how that went, and the Sun-Scarred Knights, Sir Simon, just being like, hey, here's a guy in trouble, let's help him out, was huge in ways we could not have anticipated. There's probably
the apes.
Eventually the apes, by being friends with Trefco, radical game changer. So you
weren't assholes to everybody.
Paranoid, and
liberating the apes was a big fixation for me, obviously, hence ISO and Garrelad. Yeah.
One thing really definitely benefited from being friends with us. Yeah. The Beastmen had a great time being friends with us. It worked out really well for them.
Well, that was unrelated.
That actually, it was unrelated, actually. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we screwed up a little bit with the opening that tomb up. Okay, fine, but it worked out in the end. Everybody's happy, right? You got everyone off the face.
That actually brings up one of the questions I wanted to ask John. So,
hey, Rick's in chat. Hi, Rick.
Hey, right on.
Hey,
hey.
Speaking, and he brings up the thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the Sun-Scarred Knights. So one of the things that was in the back of my mind, like before we helped Sir Simonet that second time, it really seemed to me like if the Sun-Scarred Knights' whole deal was like maintaining balance between the factions in Arden Vul, if that's really what they were doing, that I was really kind of worried that we were really getting on their shit list, because, everything that we interacted with that wasn't a goblin felt had real problems in our wake. Like losing Nefrit seemed like it would be a huge sin in their eyes because of the chaos that it caused.
Yeah, so you were getting close to having them take action, not directly against you. Like they weren't going to send out like a knight to go wipe you out. It was more about. So the deal is they were waiting. The Sunscar Strikes were waiting to see the void, how the void was filled that was left by Neferet's decimation of the Beastmen. Right, all signs pointed towards the goblins moving into that territory. And indeed, if you had not. If you just kind of let things be, which you basically were, the goblins would have fully recolonized that area, and it would have been them. At that point, I had it on my calendar. I was basically like, after a certain point, this is when the goblins have fully secured and colonized the Beastmen territory. At that point, the Sunscarred Knights would have assessed the situation and deemed that they already had the Goblin Halls where they started. Then they gained the Debouche, and then they gained the Beastmen areas as well. And they would have been like, I think the goblins may be getting a little too powerful. And so they would have then put their weight behind another faction to balance out the goblins, to make them a little bit more worried. Most likely because it was the closest, although you never really discovered that was the case, the closest geographically to them were the Setites. And so they there was already a Sunscarred Knight assigned to the Setites. I'm not really sure, but they would have put more weight behind the Setites in order to balance out the power of the goblins, basically. Maybe the Varamani too. They may have done the Varamani. So
Setites got to go. That'll be the first thing my goblin army takes care of.
And I mean, John, they were. I haven't looked at all the stuff yet. They were directly west, right? Like if we had pushed farther west, they were just like right over there.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right? Where they were. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
All right. I want to ask a question now, and it's related to some of the ones I sent John. The Pillar of Evil. The one that we kind of like Ted and I found, and then we were like, and we just left. Hecate, right? That had to be like a Hecate, like some sort of thing. What would have happened if we'd interacted with that?
Dad, don't touch it.
Yeah. So the pillar. I actually did look this up. What did I say? Oh yeah. So it was a Hecate monolith.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you were really aware of the Hecate that much at the time you encountered the pillar, but you would have recognized it immediately if you had actually, later. Touching it would have caused you damage. It would also have, it was filled with runes, and those runes would have been transferred to you as a permanent tattoo that would have drained your con, and would have applied penalties to reaction rolls for your charisma. If you had gone to the top of it, there was like a pentagram on top, and there was a whole bunch of Hecate-related treasure. It also had the unfortunate ability to summon a Kekamander demon, which is a unique demon in Arden Vul, which was like a Hecate-specific demon, like a salamander demon. Extremely nasty.
So Mike and I made a good choice by turning around.
Especially at the time in which you first encountered it, it would have been bad fucking news.
Yeah.
May or may not, like when you were all like 7th and 8th level at the time at the end of the campaign, you guys were, you guys could handle a lot of threats. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job, Ted. High five.
Yeah. Well, high five. There you go.
Yeah, you guys can roll some questions off to me if you want. We can get through that because we got to get to the Conqueror questions too.
Oh yeah. So I got one here. So we found all those Voyager records, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of knew where they would go. They would go in that on the door, on the big black doors in the Goblin Town.
Yeah.
But what do they do? What's up with those things?
So that was a funny one, like a path less taken sort of thing. So you guessed correctly. The discs would fit onto those poles on the lesser obsidian gates in the western part of the Goblin Halls. If you had rotated them correctly, there was a very specific sequence, but without a real solution. It would have been one of those things where I would have just given it, like if you had inserted the disc, you would have figured it out. Because why hide the secret? It would have opened them, and beyond, basically right beyond, was the area where a long time ago you went down that long shaft from the surface and picked up the Imperial field plate armor.
Oh, that was right there.
Yeah, it was right there. It was right there. And if now, if you remember that session from whenever you did get the Imperial field plate, remember I had to basically just meta the whole thing. I was like, "There's too much going on. I can't have you go further because it was just too much." And that was that was because like if you had And by the way, if you would open the gates from the western side, they were easy. You could just push them open. You didn't need like the disc or anything like that. And therefore, when I was reading ahead after you got the armor, I was like, oh God damn it! Like if they open those gates, it's open up to the Goblin Halls, and I had no preparation done at all. There was so much going on in the Goblin Halls, and so I was like, you got to go somewhere else because I can't handle it right now. You know. But you know, later on, it would have been one of those funny like AV classic coming in from the backside. You know, you would have opened up the lesser obsidian gates and be like, "Oh yeah, this is where we picked up the armor." You know,
I remember that's all.
but even more importantly, though, if you had actually gone through with it, it would have given you a very easy egress, relatively secret to the surface from the Goblin Halls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would have been pretty sweet.
Right
So,
on.
yeah, paths less taken.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
What happened to the Wine Dark cohort with Kraz, and what happened with Estelle and Kronos?
What do you mean? Like after
we took all the money, like how bad off were they? Like I always wanted to go do a scout. I wanted to have Darius go up there and just hang out in the bar for like a day, but we never could get it together.
Right. So
just see what happened.
It's basically like Schrodinger's Wine Dark cohort, right? Like you never, you know, it's basically like headcanon in my head. I just jotted a note down, sort of thing. If you had ended up asking that question like out on the surface, I would have basically said that the dragon wiped out the cohort in revenge. At least that part of the cohort that was there. Then the I think her name was Nicasia, the head of the cohort. She would have sworn off ever taking any jobs in Arden Vul or anywhere near it, and they would have just retreated from Burdocks Valley in general.
That'll teach him.
Thanks, Twisted Lies, for the donation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
You pop that up on screen.
Yeah, I think I can actually. Yay! Ooh,
There you go.
sweet. Right,
There you
Twisted
go.
Lies.
Hey, we can surface donuts. Thank you so much, Twisted Lays.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And then in my head too, Estelle, who prior to the Wine Dark cohort even showing up, was the member of the Broken Head that would make lots of trips to the dragon. She was basically propitiating, like, as the Broken Head was a safe haven for almost all adventurers. They would take their cut, right, and then they would they also had their secret entrance as well. They would take their cut from adventurers, and then they would tithe it to the dragon, and the dragon would keep the Broken Head. The deal was like the dragon wouldn't attack the Broken Head. So when that debacle went down with the Wine Dark cohort, she bravely actually went to the dragon and made her apologies and said, like, please don't kill me. We had a good thing going. You don't really want this, do you? And then the dragon was convinced that like it was better to you know his primary goal being treasure.
Continue to reap.
Yeah, exactly. Continue to reap. Exactly. So that's sort of my headcanon for it.
Okay.
All
So
right,
what did Kraz actually want the golden rod for?
Wait,
I need to know. I need to know. Did he didn't have access to the obsidian gates? He just wanted it back, right?
It was his.
He's wanting gold.
It was his, and he wanted it. That's the dragon's simple motivation. Yeah, you stole it. He wants it back.
It's a great example again of like that gives us a position of extrapolating in wrong directions, but for a good reason, right? And you made that very clear to us, John, I think, up to a level of explicit that maybe you didn't even intend originally, that he just wanted it because it's his, because he's gross, you know. But you can't help but think then, well, how does this relate to the dragon, right? It's so fascinating,
Go, Ted, go. You have
all right, my question is this. And I know that we did, but did we pick up a magic item we never identified that was super sick and we will all kick ourselves for not using it?
Yeah. I would try to think about this, and I'm sure there was a bunch, but the ones that sprang to mind for me was two. One was the immobilizing mesh, which I felt bad for David the entire time, because David, you were thinking of so many. You were like, maybe it'll work on this guy, maybe it'll work on this guy, and you kept on picking the wrong guys.
Well, nets are my favorite. Those types of objects are my favorite objects.
Nets are great in general, but the immobilizing mesh was it restrained summoned or gated creatures. And it
So we could
prevented
on like that Zaz guy or whatever.
Rizit. It would work. It would work great against demons. It prevented them from attacking or using any abilities. So it would have been super useful against demons. Like if you decided to like move forward as part of the main campaign to overthrow King Wiskinum, and you wanted to like reduce the influence of the demon on the goblins, you could have, I don't know, used it against Rizit. The really nasty thing about it, and it's more maybe from omission on Rick's part, maybe not expressly intended, is that there's no limit to its ability to restrain demons. So, like, I mean, or devils or whatever. Like, so, like, if a pit fiend or something like that showed
I
up,
should have given. Oh,
you know,
You can just
Sorry,
walk up
Mort.
to it and keep
sorry,
stabbing it
Mort.
until it
Or more
You could have
importantly,
used that in Goblin Town.
the ones that
Yeah.
you would have most likely would have encountered more if you had gone with the Heketi plot would have been these unique like Kekamander demons and things like that, which are deadly. The mobilizing mesh would have completely neutralized them. The other item was, this was late game, the horn that you found in the Rudishva cloister treasure room, the one that was very secret, right? That was it was a Heketi item. It was necessary to complete the summoning ritual of the Heketi demon god Kauket, on top of their ziggurat in the lowest level of the dungeon. And its disappearance was the main reason the Heketi have not been able to mount a concerted effort against to retake the halls in general. So you had the key element that the Heketi needed. Like, you had it basically, right? The Rudishva got it because remember in the early days, it was just the Rudishva versus the Heketi. The Rudishva were able to push the Heketi back, and as part of that assault, they assaulted the ziggurat and took that horn and put it in their most secret treasury, which was the cloister treasury, and it's been there for thousands of years. And you took it out, so it would have been pretty.
Hey,
cool.
John, will you pop up Jonah real quick?
Jonah.
Thank you so much, Jonah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Right on.
thanks a lot.
Oh, right on, Jonah. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Also, Richard is pretty funny in the chat. He's like, I never really thought through all the implications of that.
Yeah.
You know what? That's what I love in a designer, honesty. I fucking love it, Richard. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I got another one, John. So, what was going on with Mother after the Nefrit thing? Like, did she have it in for us? Did she even know that we were involved? What was kind of next for her?
So what happened to Mother? Yeah, I have it written down here. Where is it? Okay, so after the debacle, when Nefret attacked everything, there was a climactic battle in Dano's chamber. All of her beastmen came to defend her. That's why you found Scleros dying there and all that kind of good stuff.
Scleros.
What she did is, when she realized that she was overpowered by Nefret, she was powerful, but not as powerful as Nefret. She had the ability to polymorph. She polymorphed into a mouse, and she escaped.
Yeah.
Where she ended up going is she went to the Inn of the Lost, and she holed up there because she had a working, even prior to the debacle, she had a working relationship with the innkeeper who was known as Thagan Whitemane.
I remember, you mentioned them.
So there's a lot of history that goes down there. I might be screwing things up. I'm sure Rick can correct me, or people who've been playing it. But in general, Thagan was actually one of the members of Adrian's expedition. The ones that were the progenitors of the Beastmen, right? They were part of that tagmata that Dano used to like morph them into beasts and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, he was one that escaped Dano, but was not taken in by Dano. But he was able to extend his life because he actually found a Rudishva named Isocorax, who had a different name. I think he might actually have his name among the survivors. Doesn't matter, and it's a lot of background. Point being is that they had a working relationship with her serum that she was making, with the lotus powder or whatever it was. I can't remember. Cloud cat mushrooms. I don't know. And she retreated to the Inn of the Lost. She petitioned Thagan to keep her safe. She murdered a barmaid at the Inn of the Lost and took her form so that she could move around. Freely. And she continued to produce this like soporific mead for Thagan, which allowed him to keep Isocorax subdued. In return for safety. And then she had overall plans, this is my headcanon again, that she was going to attempt to, through time, seduce and transform Thagan into a beastman as well and restart the whole thing again.
Wow.
So I had all that worked out because you had made noises about like possibly trying to hunt down Dano. So I just sort of I had to kind of decide like where she ended up, and that would have also been giving you a good excuse to go to the Inn of the Lost and interact with that in the arena and all that sort of stuff. So,
but she never suspected us, right? Like she didn't. think that we did it, or
No.
Did
Yeah, she had no idea.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
She was
good.
just suddenly Neferret just showed up and just was destroying everything, and she was like, "Fuck!" and she just got the hell out of there. The interesting thing too is that you had a phylactery, and you found out that you had the phylactery.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I still
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't
John,
think
will you pop up David Streever real quick, just as a thank you?
Yep.
yeah.
Thank
Didn't
you,
want to cut
David.
you off while you were talking. Yeah,
The
Thanks,
Beastmen
David.
were
I
descended
forgive
from
you
that
now for
lot.
saying that you couldn't hear us.
yeah.
See, I told you, David, you're fine now.
The Beastmen were descended from that lost Tagmata, right? The Avaricius, no, not Avaricius. Anaximander came down with those guys, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I think it'd be very funny if we had made it to the end of the Lost, but much later, and everyone in it was a Beastman at that point. Would have been such a cool scene. I mean, honestly, that would have been so. Again, the
Except for one
extrapolation.
barmaid.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They're all kind of just humming and like looking at the ground, in a trance. That would have been
getting great tips.
such a good narrative thread that someone else should try to make happen in their AV campaign if they can. Because the spread, like the propagation of the Beastman in unknown areas, is a really fun theme.
That whole thing was obviously it started by you guys with the release of Neferret, but I was really enjoying the extrapolation of what occurred there, because of course none of that was written in the book. And it was a big shakeup in the dungeon. I was kind of hoping that while you guys were doing your journey to the back door, that you would dive into like trying to get the LRCP back together, and then I was looking forward to seeing like what you would do, like if you would make them your own commandos, or would you try to reinstall them in a place, or all that sort of stuff would have been fun.
They would have been a fun Praetorian Guard for Mort for sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that would have been sweet.
Yeah.
But I'll just set up to settle for my Goblin Fedakeen. That'll be all
You
right.
still have like a small contingent of beastmen that you could recruit.
I could go back and find them, but we didn't get to it. That's all right.
So we can't hit all of your guys' stuff, but maybe like one from each, one pressing, one from each of you guys, and we'll move on to Conqueror stuff.
I got one more.
Get to Conquerors,
if it's all right, then. What was the moment we came closest to unknowingly walking into certain death? Like if we turned left instead of right, or gave up on a locked door behind which was a monster way out of our league.
Yeah, so there was a few of those, but the one that immediately sprang to mind that I got was, and I'm showing it here on the thing, was in the fungal caverns. I don't know if you guys can see my. Is that showing up on?
Yeah,
right there. So that was that Hecate pillar. That was like you remember sitting on top of that rock formation in the fungal caverns.
Yeah.
So you remember your whole plan to like topple it and all that kind of stuff with Mike flying and Upior ballooning and all that sort of stuff, and you were going to use a rope. You were like one sentence away from saying you touched it.
Yes.
Right? And you didn't. And I was because it was, I was saying palpable evil. I was telegraphing the whole thing, but you were so close to saying I interact with it. Right.
I was tempted.
You were
just to see.
I can remember the episode. Like you were so close to saying it. If you had interacted with it in any way, shape, or form, it would have immediately gated in a Kekamander demon.
Oh,
like immediately, and that would
That's
would
cool.
have been very close, if not a definite TPK at that point. It would have been super fucking nasty. So that was a very close thing.
I have to do go Matt. Go.
I was just saying I remember that telegraphing on that felt very clear. Like it very much felt like something not to mess with.
You made the right decision.
There's something about an evil pillar that really is daunting. I gotta fulfill my role and say one last thing before we get to the Conquerors. I have a question, John. Daddy, who is your favorite boy?
My favorite boy.
Which one of us is best boy?
He's gonna make his appearance right now. It's this guy.
Oh, there's the good boy, Elvis.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
See, I need to go get Wyndham. Yeah.
Here's my last evil. It's not evil. It's very easy. What was up with Ibby, John?
Ibby.
The invisible ibis that popped up when Avaricious drank from that water near the God Phone.
Yeah, so the fountain, I think it's called the Fountain of Knowledge or something like that, just south of the God Phone, which was like technically called the Oracle of Thoth. It had as you guys knew, there was a random table, and that was purely just my improvising on one of the results of the table. So the entry that you hit on that random thing was basically said strong delusion for 1 to 4 days.
Oh, perfect.
It didn't
We got
say like what that
plenty as
delusion was.
is.
And I was just
Yeah.
like, I just made it in IBIS, and that was that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I
So
just
the
rolled a
delusion
D4, and then it stayed with you until however many days I rolled.
Delusion was a dear friend. Wow.
I thought for sure Ibby was like we were not interacting properly, that there was some like genuine profit of thought thing going on. It was a
like
delusion.
if you did something Thoth liked, he would be happy. If you did something Thoth didn't like, he would peck at you.
But I was making clear that like only Avaricios was seeing it, right? And the rest of you guys didn't see it, So it was hallucination. But I love that kind of stuff where it's like a random result and it ends up being like a marker in the campaign, like
you think about it forever.
Yeah, it's good shit.
Okay, should we do questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's
Conqueror question. Yeah, man.
These Conqueror questions. So so just so that you guys know, Conqueror is our highest paid Patreon tier, and I just opened it up this past week on our Discord server for Conquerors to ask us one question each. So we'll get through as many of these as we can. I'm going to do it in the order in which I received the questions. So hopefully that some of you guys are actually here in chat as well. So Zondervane first up asked me, what in the dungeon that your players didn't do or see, or perhaps saw and didn't follow up on, would you have most have liked them to encounter? Which is a great question. I think a couple of people asked a similar question as well. There's a few of now I haven't read Arden Vul like back to front to back, so I'm sure there's like probably some things on like the fishmen level and the lizardmen level that I didn't really dive into that are probably pretty freaking awesome. It would have been cool for them to encounter, but I'm not aware of that stuff. But of the stuff that I was prepared for, things that I kind of wish that they had seen. One was the weapons module of the beacon, which was guarded by the rogue psychotic AI Raj, R-A-J.
Oh, I wanted to meet Raj so bad.
That would have been, I was kind of hoping like you would be like, oh fuck, the shuttle doesn't have weapons, but we want to fight Cross. How do we get good weapons onto the ship? And that was a matter of time and your ability to find the weapons module, of course. But I was kind of hoping you dive into that because if you had gone to the weapons module and defeated Raj, which would have been tough, he's very tough, there are WMDs in the weapons mod. There's a nuke. There's a nuke, and there's like a bio.
We could have gotten Alexia.
And there's like a plague spreading bioweapon as well, like
so
utterly
like
sight destroying weapons. Which I was like, I just kind of wanted you guys to get your hands on them just to see what you would plan to do with them. Would have been pretty amazing.
You're so evil.
It's very tough to get in the weapons module though, but I was kind of hoping you kind of go for that. Another one was the I had a whole. This is written in the module that the head of the Guild of Service, who were the slavers of the Sedites, right? That other faction, right?
Yeah.
The head of the Guild of Slavers was actually replaced by a doppelganger. This is published in the module.
That's
okay.
Okay. And where the actual guild master was he was in like a cave somewhere with other prisoners or something like that. But I extrapolated and I said that original guild master actually escaped, but then he got caught by Garalad and the Four-Armed Baboons. And if you remember, when you were trekking across the Arden Vul ruins, you saw Garalad and Cisco with another guy with like a Fu Manchu mustache. Do you remember that whole thing? Right? And I was hoping that you sort of interact with that, because then you would have found out that, oh my God, this is the guild master of the Guild of Service. And he would have given you the story about like how he was replaced. And it would have led into this whole like Sedite politics sort of thing, because the Sedites were unaware of the fact that the Guild of Service was headed up by a doppelganger that was working actively against them. It was like a really cool thing.
That would have been a good thread.
The last one was I was hoping that you guys, or was looking forward to anyways, a concerted hunt. Like you were like, the mission is we're going to find the Goblin Scepter of Authority. Dealing with Gislu and the rebel goblins, I think would have been a really cool plot too, because that would have I think Gislu was actually with the Varumani. I think maybe I'm wrong. Could be the Sedites. I can't remember. Somebody can tell me in chat. But that would have dovetailed in with that kind of faction stuff. So that's the answer to that question. Thanks, Zondervane. MechJack has one for the players. What is your biggest open question you'd wish you'd been able to answer before the end?
We've answered it. I really wanted to know about the obelisks and the silver ankh, because I was carrying one of those silver ankhs around for 100+ episodes, and it never seemed the time to go back and try it out. So that was the one I was really curious about.
Yeah, that would have been sweet.
For me, it was less like open-ended questions and more just places that we never got to go to. I would have loved to gone to like the Forum of Set. It's amazing that like all these common areas in the dungeon we just never even interacted with.
We did it backwards.
The Forum of Set, the Inn of the Lost, and the Varomani Court are the big three for me that I would have liked to have.
The arena.
The arena.
The elevator would have been cool.
One of mine was that museum in the Trial of Arden. Like we kept speculating, are those just fake things designed to like lure you and get you pummeled by these statues, or was there anything real and of value in that museum?
There's a mix of both, by the way, is the answer to that question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
David?
I mean, I have a less specific one, but I just, it's meta, but I just wanted to know what the bottommost level of the dungeon was. Like geographically, what was in the absolute pit of the dungeon.
Very, very bottom was the ziggurat of Kauket. That is the very bottom level. It's under, like underneath the very, the ground itself, like way underneath.
Yeah.
And it also has
in the lake.
it's also like the symbolic climax of the even though it's totally open end. It's like when you realize that the Heketi were the ultimate threat. The culmination of the entire thing could be an assault upon the ziggurat. It almost would be impossible to completely push them back as just a single party, unless you had one of those WMDs, for instance. But it would have been cool. I think Eric can actually correct me if I'm wrong. That I believe at the culmination of Eric. I probably shouldn't spoil it. Go watch Eric's stream.
Yeah.
He deals more with that than we do.
I will say that ziggurat evokes, as an old AVP nerd, Broken Tusk atop a ziggurat killing xenomorphs.
True.
Who was sort of like the central character of Aliens vs Predator. But that's so cool.
Did we come close to a path down there? I can't remember if there was like a teleport. Like how would you get?
There is a main entrance on to that level via level 9, which is the bottom of the chasm. You actually were on that. So the Bastion. You remember, like if you headed east of the Bastion, there was like those trash heaps that you kind of peered through, and you're like, no, we got to focus on the mission, right? We got to find the drive rods. So you didn't go there, but that would have opened up into the vast bottom of the chasm, and there's like a whole bunch of shit going on there. One of the things in the base of that chasm is like the pathway, like the pebbled pathway, the grand entrance to the Heketi Power Center. Of course, it's heavily guarded and trapped, but that's your main way to get down there.
My biggest regret of the entire game, I will say, by a large margin, which is okay. 10 years from now we'll do it. Was not jumping into the chasm. I wanted to nosedive into that chasm so bad. From the minute we saw it, like resisting the ideation of jumping into that chasm and just sacrificing a character if I had to, just to know, was so hard.
There was
I loved it.
Someone in the Survivors of Arden Vul Facebook page, one of the users actually did an awesome job of creating a vertical map of what you would pass by as you went down the chasm.
That's sick.
And it's very, very helpful if anyone wants. If anyone's going to run it, you should look that up on that page. Next question, Tom Eric. Are there any parts of the OSR style that didn't work as well as expected over a longer campaign? For myself, not really. I enjoyed all aspects of the playstyle. Goes without saying. I found that certain things that are associated with OSR, I didn't really use that much that I was planning on using, but I didn't really need to. I found out was reaction rolls, loyalty checks, which are like reaction rolls for retainers, and determining encounter distances, that kind of stuff. I didn't really use that much. I was able to make those calls on my own. And because I generally kind of tend to view myself either as like a relatively neutral arbiter or at least in somebody who's a fan of the players, I felt that I didn't need to relegate that to like a random roll. Like it just like the circumstances always sort of dictated like what like how hostile an enemy would or a random encounter would be. I was never like left in question of like how they would be acting, that sort of thing. And encounter distances were always very circumstantial as well. Like if I rolled a random encounter, I would just look at the map and I'd be like, they're probably like this far away. You know what I mean? So
you didn't roll to have Codswallop betray me and stab me in the heart and ruin our lives by stealing all of our money. That swine, that pig.
You
did that. That's your fault.
There was also one thing I regret, and this is mostly from our decision to focus on the dungeon only and not Burdock's Valley, is that I wish there were more opportunities to spend the massive amounts of gold that you got. That was purely almost a result of the focus on the dungeon. But I think one of the things that we sacrificed was the ability, like the gold just became an XP value for us eventually, right? Like it was less about like, oh, what can we do with this gold? You had a couple of really great uses. Like the whole reason that you were able to get in Wiskinium's good graces is because you threw a bunch of shit of gold at him. But it would have been cool to see you like, strongholds and maybe buying political influence in Gosterwick and all that sort of stuff,
I tried to build I tried to hire masons to come up and build a tower for us. And you told us all the masons had been hired by Lady Alexia to build that keep at the bottom of the falls.
They had, I mean, you invested you invested money in like the Shrine of Lysion and things like that. That was all money, but
the one instance Ted would have supported my aggression towards Alexia. Never get in the way between an Imperial Goblin and his tower.
It's true. It's true. If that had been your reason for going to war with Alexia, I would have supported it. It's true.
John, can I interject?
I'm sure we could have hired other people in the dungeon to do that work for us, right? We probably could have hired goblins or. Mm-hmm. I think I read somewhere in the Discord there was a contingent of dwarves down there that we never ran into. That would have been cool.
Dwarves, whatever.
John, can I interject one quick question from Hexblar Josh? Not to be self-indulgent, but it's topical to what we've been talking about. Getting to play a game with me. What are you guys feeling about my role as introducing chaos to play?
I mean, to be honest with you, David, you get a little bit of a rap for that, but it's not really like it's not really deserved. Like,
I think chaos in a good way.
You are actually really good at you are kind of like a double-edged sword, because on one hand you're really good at slowing everything down. but on the other hand, you're really good for just catapulting us forward at the same time, right? Like it's like you'll talk about it for 15 minutes, but then you'll have a game-changing like idea that just completely upends everything. And so I don't really view it as chaos. I mean, I think it's dynamic. It's more you're an agent of dynamism.
Well, and to make this less about me, because I don't want it to just be a begging for question or compliments thing. How do you guys feel about like the idea of order? We say order and chaos, but that sort of like slingshot aspect. We rode the lightning. All of us chose to multiple times. Ted almost died at the end from it, right? But now that John's gone, I'll just kind of follow it, right? That sense of like tension release, which is organic to how all of us play and how anyone would play, but also it becomes necessary at a certain point. The amount of times, Mike, for instance, you're like, all right, guys, we just got to move on. It's so necessary, even if sometimes laborious, discussion is too. I don't know. How do you guys feel? Are there any instances of that you felt strongly about? Or,
I mean, I don't know. I think that it more to the point is that, like, for example, there were a couple of, twofers, right? Everybody had one, right? Where it was just a dynamic duo. Mike and I had a couple that were, I think, very kind of by the book, old school play.
Great example.
Corridor. We look in, we do the thing, we back out, whatever. That would be probably not fun over 114 episodes for everybody to watch.
Yes,
right. So it would be fun for me. It'd be fun for Mike, but not fun for the watchers, maybe, right? So I think that it doesn't really. It's not so much that like David is an agent of chaos. It's that the four of us have four different play styles that mix together interestingly in different combinations, depending on who's playing and what's happening in the scene.
Yes.
And, I've said things that made the party go one way, and David said things that make the party go a different way. And that's the important bit, is you got four different people doing things.
Yeah. I think like, chaos isn't really the right word for it, because everything, like one of the things I love about playing with you guys is that everybody does stuff with like good thought behind it, right? Yeah. It's never just like, I'm going to mess this up or I'm going to mess that up or whatever.
I'm just going to murder Trivlock. I don't know.
Right? Like everything, even that, I was surprised, but even that at the time, like you think about it, like, there's thought behind that. Like this is not done out
All
of
which can
random
be
or like
expressed on camera.
right?
Yeah.
Right. It's stuff that's done with thought behind it, and that's always worth bringing to the table. Right?
I always think about like how Onweir and Darius finally met their ends, right? Like it was like there was a reason for it, right? And finding out that Gerlad himself was not overly actually that powerful, and we actually had a real shot of murdering him in that hallway, is actually super interesting. It was just rolls got us, man, but the whole thing was super fun. Like,
You know
it was
what-
really
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And
Like-
the failure was fun too. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Let me,
And that one I think only really failed. Like I think there were like real life logistics that got in the way. Like, if we had the full party and it wasn't just a couple of you guys having to work on your own, absolutely we could have done more in terms of prep, distraction, whatever. But real
Can I
life.
bring
I
us
think we
back
actually
on track because we
did
have a lot of
Yeah,
questions
yeah.
to go through.
Yeah. Let's hit 'em.
Sorry, guys.
So Berserker Grunt, was there a specific house rule you later, I guess it's for me, was there a specific house rule you later implemented that you wish you'd used from the beginning of the campaign that you believe would have helped in a Megadungeon setting? For me, the magic house rules that we talked about earlier would have been helpful from the start. We implemented those later after that we encountered pain points along the way, right? As we talked about earlier in the stream. And combining all of the arcane spells into the magic user list, I think was also a good thing. I not proud, but I'm glad I did that. Just so that you don't have to like pick a class in order to get certain access to spells. The other big one for me for a house rule that happy I implemented was ditching the XP waste rules. Rules are written and allowing for multiple level jumps at once. I just don't think those things are fun, really, in the end. I just, even with FOE, which was by far the biggest driver of XP gain in the like, there was still like it was a good pace of leveling, but it wasn't like crazy Monty Hall, like you were just going to the heights of power immediately. It was like a good pace. And I just feel that why not? Like, like, fuck it. You got enough XP, then you jump a few levels. Like, why not? You know what I mean? I had this whole thing like where in the earlier episodes where like you've got to experience each level for a little bit, but then I asked myself like, why? Like, what's the point? So I'm glad.
Well, I think it's a good indication to juice you, John, that you have a really good sense of proportionality. And it goes to all of these sorts of decisions, also are contextual to AV or whatever they're playing. But that sense of proportionality is important because there are so many systems or aspects of a module that will, amplify the difficulty or the friction. So knowing when to make exceptions, I think really doesn't sacrifice the tension or anything like that. Yeah,
for
so
sure.
Good job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So DM Dr. Rob asks, has keeping track of XP taken much time, especially considering feats of exploration, calculations, and locations of loot? If not, what have you done to save time? Again, this is for me. Answer to that is not really. I would say that calculating FOE is basically about 10 to 15 minutes after each session. Just kind of rethinking about the paths that they took, usually like looking at the map, thinking about what they did. And the reason that it didn't take that long each time is because I had those automated spreadsheets that I have. So I had you guys everyone out there has access to my automated spreadsheet, which is bare bones. Other people have taken FOE and made like really cool, like Obsidian programs for auto calculating and all that kind of stuff. You should look those up. But they definitely help. The other spreadsheet that I had that I was pretty proud of is I had an auto calculating XP tracker as well, so I could just input the numbers and then it would sort of divvy it up, like how much retainers get, how much you guys get, and it would add it all up, and so that it didn't take that much time. Matt M asks, sorry guys, you guys all have to be quiet while all these questions.
Yeah,
go for me.
Go. Yeah,
I'm whipping through them though, and we do appreciate them. Matt M, one of the Matts, asks, what specific advice would you give to GM starting an Arden Vul campaign? This is there's so much, of course. I think a lot of people talked about this on Discord, of course. You should definitely ask people who are other GMs of Arden Vul what they've done as well. For me, this is me personally. You should read the intro and the appendices in full, which will give you an overall picture of the world, Arden Vul's context within it, and the motive, and specifically pay attention to the motivations of all the major factions. That'll give you an overall just sort of idea of what's going on in the place. Second point is I think you should start the players at the falls, specifically, which is what we did. One thing that I found out later, after we had already started the campaign, was that it was mistakenly absent was a bridge that crossed the river, which allowed access to
the other side,
what is the other main entrance, which was used by a lot of people outside, which was a raised basket that went up and down that took you not directly, but basically right to the Forum of Set, because the Forum of Set is like where a lot of outsiders do a lot of trade. And I think that you should. I would have placed that bridge like right where the tower was, that the first from episode 1, that ruined tower where you saw the ghost. Because then that's an immediate decision point. Like they would be able to see, like, you could go across the bridge to the basket, or you could take the long stair up. What do you do? Right. Yeah. Like just think about the implications in episode 1. If you had decided to go across the bridge and you immediately entered the Setite area, how that would have changed everything.
Very different.
Everything.
Very different.
Wow.
So I recommend doing
can I
that.
add something in? For GM advice and player advice, is one of the things we started doing was, which we have our treasure tracker, and having the page number added on to any treasure item made it really easy for us and for John. Because I picked up a potion in the halls outside the cryo chamber, and I totally lost track of what it was, and John wasn't sure what it was anymore, and like we were just not willing to spend the time to go back and figure it out. And it was probably the potion of saving everyone easily in one swallow, but I couldn't be bothered to figure it out, So like we lost track of tons of stuff because the page numbers of treasure items was very helpful.
Very, very key. Yeah.
Thank you for tracking our treasure.
And frankly, if Ted and Matt are not able to keep track of something, nobody is. because without you guys, it would have been
right now. My neighbors are deciding to fucking pound on the floor above me. So if you hear that, that's.
Oh wow!
I don't know what.
New York.
Okay. Yeah, baby. All right.
Real quick, other advice: ask your players for clear goals each session, so that you can focus your prep on likely areas that they'll explore. I've seen a number of anecdotal evidence that people have tried to do this, and their players immediately go off the rails. You've seen them do that. It's the nature of players; they will do that, but you should at least make it something that you wish them to do. It will save you a lot of time and effort. And lastly, for general advice for running the adventures, if the players show cleverness, you should reward them. And this is key, even if it's not the actual solution written in the published module. The published module has a lot of puzzles which are very, very hard to crack. And there's innumerable times, don't ask me to pinpoint one, but there's a lot of times where the Arden Vader is one. Early on, Varger decides to explore down there, right? That was a really cool idea to do. It was very clever in thinking that something might happen, even though him just saying the word Arden isn't technically how it gets the Arden Vader going. I just rewarded the cleverness by saying why would I deny that to him just because he didn't fit the exact way to activate the Arden Vader? Right?
I love you.
The spirit of it, was there. It was extremely clever thinking to do it. It would have been the same way with the Lesser Obsidian Gates. Just putting the discs on, I would have allowed you to rotate them to open up the doors. Like, why would I make you discover that you need to take one, rotate it right 45 degrees, and the other one, the finding the solarium in the palace early on with Varger's death. There was I think there was a barrier to entry where it was like a wizard lock of 12th level or something like that, and I was like, fuck that. Like the solarium's cool. Like you go in, and
then immediately die.
Yeah. But you got to. But it was one of the. It was one of the most memorable scenes from the entire campaign, right? Like it stuck with everybody. And so the point being, if your players are clever, give them the benefit of the doubt and just reward them with stuff in that way. Like bypass what's written in the module and just reward cleverness.
Yeah, that's John, the only thing as good as cleverness is a glorious death, rather.
Yeah. In the chat, John, Richard agrees with your reward player cleverness. You want to bring that, cue that one up there.
Yeah.
There we go. Boom.
There we go.
Richard also mentioned he's working on a sequel to Arden Vul. We could pop up there.
That's cool.
Like a supplement, I think, in Burdock's Valley. It's just pretty cool.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. New volume. There will be a couple of small sites around Gosterwick, then a much bigger one, Dwarvenhold with a twist in Southwest. After that, things will get weird. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so we can all look
Love
forward to
it.
Very
expanding the
cool.
world.
Oh,
because
yeah.
honestly,
Everyone
the
get it
more
when it comes
dwarves
out,
you-
guys.
The more dwarves you add to any campaign setting, the better.
Yeah, you'll make
We
Mike
found your
happy.
dwarven armor, Mike.
Okay, next question. Isaac Spencer, which death of a PC, retainer, or NPC was your favorite and why? Mine was both Codswallop and Darius. Both were committed by Mort.
The secret evil character of the
Yeah,
True.
but both
I'm
of
not
those
chaotic
deaths,
at all.
Mort played it awesome, and just it was great storytelling, and just they were super cool moments. I'll always remember those moments. So I don't know if you guys
Right
have
on.
it.
Thank you. I would. So when I've read this question, John sent us these questions. You know, I read it, and I realized favorite was not how I interpreted it. But Osric was really a big deal for me because we were so soon into it, and I thought we were being really careful, you know, and we wandered into a spot that totally outclassed us.
Mhm.
Right. And I had not fully realized the degree to which unbalanced encounters exist here in this Megadungeon. And Osric paid the price, and we learned a valuable lesson. But so it's not my favorite, but it was a very important death, I feel.
Yeah, probably the most useful.
Yeah.
For me, I saw this question as well. I'm biased, obviously. Avaricios' death, I thought, was very interesting, just in terms of like the opportunity for change that it allowed, right? Like we were on a path that was going to be very kind of rote, right? Like we had Njal there with like his giant mound of hit points, and Avaricios was getting very, very, very powerful. And so the loss of those characters, and Yost at the same time, right? Like it was a big loss, but it's also a big pivot and a big opportunity for additional characters to grow and bloom, and it really changed the nature of the whole campaign at that point. So I thought that was really really cool.
I would springboard off of Matt and say my favorite death for very similar reasons was Avaricios, because like not only was like an epic sight, right? The immolation of Avaricios, what a line. But it's I think it's really fun to see a character as dynamic. Matt's very good at playing his characters, everyone knows, but dynamic and powerful and seemingly almost immortal at that point, because the longest living character we had, right? Go up literally in smoke in an instant, as tragic as that is so evocative of the world, both that we play in and the world at large. And I could go on forever about like death and how play like makes us think about death in our own lives. But I think that was incredible. And to follow it up, because he mentioned it, Wolford's one of my favorite characters of all time. Not to experience Wolford would be a tragedy, right? So it goes back to the preciousness thing. Like that was so significant to my joy of the campaign, even though it was sad to see him go. That's the ghost. That's the ghost of Avaricios knocking on the ceiling right now.
I've lived here for like decades, and the first time
it's okay.
They got a new pogo stick just
very, very quickly, surprising absolutely no one. My favorite NPC death was Isocrites. Yeah, no shit. Yeah,
I liked John's portrayal of like my one henchman. It was the only henchman I had. Atticus, what was it, Skullface or something like that? Yeah. It was just like your portrayal of him was really good, and then he just died from the poison, the classic poison needle trap.
That's good shit.
You know,
okay.
I'm still salty about Gold.
Brawler Jake ain't joshing around. For the players, what is something you guys discussed doing but decided not to, and really wish you had?
Bill Garland in person by hand.
For me, it was going after the Goblin Scepter, because I thought that was just like a classic adventure that we could have done.
Yeah, it would have been good.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say mine was like interacting with either the Five Fingers or Kerbog. Like I'm always curious to see. I know that there's a lot of stuff there, and I'm always kind of willing to risk the chance that it might go badly just to kind of find out, what's that story back there. So that's one of mine.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
Something you discussed doing, but
I
decided
read
not
chat.
to.
I think we got a really good version of it with Mort's final moments, but from the minute we met the goblins, one of the most compelling things that I wanted to have happen is Mort to be seated on the goblin throne. And it would have been fun had there not been, as per example, everyone's other stuff, a million other really fun things, to be a part of some sort of goblin coup with Mort would have been a blast, man. It would have been that would have been a campaign in itself. That would have been remarkable.
Well, it's like
but
Mike
I
was
still
saying,
think you
like,
got a good send off.
They would have been part of it, like doing the goblin scepter and everything, but yeah. Okay, Magic Meat Machine. What's the most impactful thing you'll carry into future TTRPG play from this experience? That's a really good question. For me, it's after I had my OSR epiphany. It's like, it's not that I would only play OSR games, but there's a lot of the play style that I would take into other games if the games allowed for that kind of play style to be. So things like maximum player agency, I would probably use in every single campaign. I love that. Reactive refereeing. I've made this point a number of times to don't make the players react to you, but you as a game master should react to what they do. You can basically apply that to any game. And I've made no bones about this on Discord. I have a general disdain now for crunchy tactical combat. I know that there are pros and cons for like completely theater of the mind, and we've had our struggles with it, but I would rather take those than go back to the mini game, which is sort of modern tactical combat with battle maps. So I just have no desire to play any games that sort of focus on that anymore. So that's what I would take away. I don't know about you guys.
I think that the theater of the mind thing is really important because Matt and I have been running some games with some kids that we play with, and we moved away from that sort of tactical thing. There's still maps on a battle mat for them to help visualize, but we've moved towards theater of the mind combat, and taking away that tactical thing, I think, makes it more accessible to more players. If you have a very tactical, advanced, like, and I say this with love, Mike and the 5-foot step as a master of knowing exactly when to use that rule, whatever edition that the hell that was, I don't even remember now. Third? Yeah, fine. Like that kind of very granular tactical thinking, Mike's really good at. Not everybody is. Combat can be not fun for those people, but when you're all imagining everything, it's way more fun for more players. Of course, except for Mike, who would, like that.
Just to riff off of that, I love tactical combat. So that's not going to be a non-starter for me. However, I do think that there's a lot more room now for separation of those types of games. Like I'd almost rather play like Mordheim or something like that than try and incorporate tactical combat into a TTRPG.
That's what I feel.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not really against it. I think that, my conversion to the OSR stuff was a little bit harder than everybody else's, but for me, it always felt like a little bit more of a reawakening for the way I played when I was a kid. Because this is exactly how we played when we were all like, sitting in my friend Steve's basement. It's so I don't know that I think I'm happy just looking at it as a different type of game. If someone wanted me to play Pathfinder 2, I'd be very happy to sit down and play Pathfinder 2. But I don't know that I would necessarily want to make that be my primary game at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm pretty happy with the OSR playstyle.
Yeah. I'll try to be brief. That like intent, and I'm going to do it. I know, because we got a lot to get through. That intent versus implementation thing is so hard, and it's why homebrewing and ad hoc is important. No matter how perfect we think a OSR or an OSR game is, there's going to be situations in which application creates friction, and that has to be a discussion. In terms of the tactical thing, like Matt or like Mike, I love tactical games. There's a lot of really cool indie skirmish games. Oh, let's call out. Yeah.
Thanks, Ed Zacco, and one for the donation.
Ed Zacco.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Thank you. The intent, there's some cool indie skirmish game scenes going right now that can kind of hit that, right? You can silo that. I will say, personally, and this led into us like talking a lot behind the scenes and half implementing shield rules. I think part of the issue of tactical combat is also, especially in theater of the mind, a failure of like spatiality and a sense that the tactics that are being employed are contextual to the moment rather than siloed on the character. So if we're talking about Pathfinder and all this stuff, yeah, the 5 foot step is one thing, but so much of tactics is character sheet, sort of like management that feels totally divorced from everyone else at the table, even if there are synergies embedded in it. And I don't think that's fulfilling. And I think it takes a lot of time. I don't know that there's a solution otherwise. We've been cracking at, or I've been cracking at one, might fail, but it's hard there. That like stepping away from it thing is important. But yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
My answer to this one's really, really quick. Use the stuff when you find the thing, when you get the potion.
True.
Use it up. We ended this thing with so many items that we never had a chance to use. Yeah. And like, I'm a hoarder. My intention is, like this will be perfect for this situation. If only this situation comes up. Like next time, like going forward in TTRPGs, I'm using the stuff, man. I'm gonna use it up.
Yeah, 100%.
Classic JRPG players.
Video games too. I do that in video games. Like I end up with like 40,000 like consumables, and I'm like, but I might need it later.
That's so true. Yeah, I gotta get over that.
I'm gonna use my stuff now from now
on. Mando and Z. The good questions. I think this might be, we've kind of answered it already for everyone. Regarding mysteries or loose threads, what is the one thing or time no object you would have each liked to explore or solve? And he asked for me specifically, what was the most tantalizing thing that you would have loved the players to encounter and solve? I think we sort of answered that already pretty much, right? Like for me, it would have been like the Sedite faction. I was looking forward to interacting with that doppelganger whole thing, right?
Yeah, I would add the Trials of Arden would have been fun too.
Trials of Arden,
super fun. Yeah.
Agree.
Those quizzes that were around in I forget the name of the hall with all the quizzes that with Thoth at the end of it.
The Hall of Shrines. Yeah.
Lady Clementia's
right? Like go around and do all those. That would have been really fun.
Yeah. Lady Clementia's asylum. I agree.
I really wanted to know.
I wanted nothing to do with those trials. It's like, go fight 5 owlbears. No, thank you. Come on. Whatever.
The culmination of that was something else. Like if you could go all the way, you would have actually met Arden herself. And she would have given you her spear, her actual spear, which was
wow. Okay,
cool. Yeah,
it's a +1 weapon, but dwarves can't use it.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know a guy who knows a thing or two about
Arden's goblin armor. Here you go.
Zach rolls ones. I've always wondered about the way you guys do. This is for me. About the way you guys do listen to door checks. I've always done those rolls myself as the GM, so the players didn't know what the result was on the D6. Do you have the players make the roll for a reason, or am I a harsh DM? You're not a harsh DM, Zach. It's going to be fine. You can go ahead and keep doing that. For me, it's laziness. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I can't be bothered making rolls for the players. I got enough shit to do. I don't want to be rolling dice all the time. And another big part of it is David had a lot of influence on my mind shift in this as well. Is I don't mind metagaming. So I have no issues with players acting on knowledge from a failed or successive roll. And this is completely 180 from what I used to be like prior to 3D6 DTL and my OSR epiphany. Is I used to be, it's all about immersion, whatever it takes to be like completely immersed. It was like a prime importance, and now it's like just no longer that for me. I could give a shit. So like if you roll, if you as a player roll listen at doors and you roll that 1, which is what you need to roll, and I say you don't hear anything, and then you're like, well, then now I know metagaming wise that there really isn't anything to hear because I succeeded on the roll, and you act on that in a metagamey way, like just take yourself out of the moment for a second and realize like, who gives a shit? Like it doesn't matter. Like it's fine. Just go ahead and act on it. Like you know what I mean? That's my reasoning behind allowing the players to roll that stuff. Like I just can't be bothered.
Just a quick thing for everyone on our side. My pop-out chat froze, so I had to reset it. So if it doesn't look like chat's moving, I suggest you do that. Anyway,
I'm good.
Mine's okay.
Crispy Wolf in chat, creator of
Crispy Wolf.
Yeah, creator of Offworlders, OSR Luminary. Welcome, Chris.
Person who hipped me to OSR. Crispy is the origin point.
Yeah. Okay, next
Thanks
question.
a lot, Chris.
Arroway. This one is for the players. What is your favorite cheesy solution you guys use this campaign? That's a great question.
I got it first.
Mike, what is it?
I got it first. Dropping the rocks on those fucking lizards. I thought that was the best.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, no, it's so true, dude.
Like
so true.
That was the smartest thing I've ever done in my life.
I wrote down in my notes balloon wizard.
Balloon Wizard.
That was I love balloon wizard.
That was a good cheesy solution. Yeah.
I had two. I love the twine with the holy symbols to get past that was really fun. And the other one was the combination of like spells and druid stuff that I think Ted and I were in a duo when we went through the pool to come back up on the other side with the turtle. And like the spells let us like cheese and just get all of the treasure out of there. And just the turtle was just frustrated and couldn't do anything.
That was great.
That gave us the helmet that was, again, one of the most valuable items that we needed at the end.
Yep.
Ended the campaign.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to think of one because I love cheesy solutions. They're my favorite part of RPGs.
It's got to be
video games or otherwise.
It's got to be your assassination, right? Of what's his name?
I guess so. I guess yeah. The assassination would be one.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy burrowing a hole with stone shape. Both when we did it in the secret library and in the final play. Yeah. There's nothing that feels better. And again, this is probably a permission thing on John's side too, but there's nothing that feels better because, and this goes to Ted as well, we're mapping. And spatiality is key to our game. And you could call it meta, but I don't feel that way about it, right? Also because we can imagine it in narrative as a map. But to say, hey, I bet I could get in the back door, our favorite thing to do, right? In life and in game, and burrow through. I mean, it's so fun.
It's great. It's great because that spell breaks the closed matrix of a dungeon, which is supposed to be like inviolable, right? But that spell specifically made for that.
Awesome. What about you, John? Did you have a cheesy solution that we came up with that was your favorite?
All those ones you mentioned, I enjoyed. I think the question was directed to you guys, but you guys were. I enjoyed all that stuff that you guys did. Empire of Benin asks, what are all your backup PCs that got left behind up to? This is like another Schrodinger's question.
Breggy got up to level 5, and Breggy the dwarf got up to level 5, but he has all the original equipment he started with.
And that's
not anymore, baby. He's loaded up.
We looted him. No, Titus is ensconced in the library, reading all of the books and histories and spell books were left behind. And when he is complete, he will weave a cocoon and emerge as a beautiful archmage. That's
lovely. Holden. Oh, sorry, Matt. Go.
No. Go.
I think Holden has turned into a classic Appalachian uncle and is jaundiced and booze bloated after using his one mage skill suggestion to continually get goblins to find and bring him back beer.
That's amazing. Puts a whole new spin on that character.
So Ignominious, who I never got to play in a session at all, is the one character that is making out the best of everybody in the AV club. He was the guy who stayed in the posh hotel with all the treasure for like a couple of weeks. Spent like raiding the hotel minibar, racking up the room charges. He skimmed so much off the top of that treasure pile that nobody will ever know about, never faced a lick of danger, and is just living the high life of luxury with all the treasure that he's stolen from that pile. Oh no! What's Mort gonna do?
But Ignominious was the guy that you sent back to Gosterwick with the message for Freitas, which means that for all intents and purposes, maybe he's still there. Like he's back in Gosterwick.
Yeah, maybe so. Just go back to the hotel and chill there forever.
Absolutely. All right, Scott. For GM and player alike, what was the biggest difference in tone, play style, GM load, however you want to answer, between AV, Arden Vul, and Dolmenwood? Great question. For me, it's fairly obvious. One is a hex crawl. One is a dungeon crawl. It's fairly obvious. There's a huge difference right there. Wilderness hex crawls in general overloads you with possible options because there's few restrictions to travel. Like you can go in 360 degrees at almost any time, right? Where a dungeon, again, is a closed matrix. So it automatically limits your routes. So that basically restrains your play style accordingly. That's the obvious answer for me.
We kind of talked about this some already, because like a hex crawl or any sort of other long-term campaign really separates the encounters, whereas a mega dungeon like this one, everything's holistically connected. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like that, I remember in Dolmenwood, we went to the whatever that guy is with the teeth thing, right? And that was a very different adventure than brewery that was smuggling beer. You know, they're totally different encounters, and what you did in one didn't affect the other. And everything we did in AV, affected everything else we did in AV.
Right.
I think that's really smart, Ted. I think for me, a big part of it was Dolmenwood was kind of like my first outing back into OSR play style, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fear level and the fear to engage on things was like pretty high. And so I think we got better in Dolmenwood of just kind of interacting with the world around us. Like I'll never forget, we were playing in Dolmenwood and we went into a new hex and we came across this like green mist that was coming out of a crack in like a cliff face or something like that. And we all went, nah, and we just left. And John's probably like sitting there going, God damn it.
You know? I was kind of like that, yeah.
Pansies, you know? And so like I don't think we did that as much in Arden Vul. I think we definitely had our moments where we just noped out of things, but in general, we are just a lot more open to exploration and interaction.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree. Like one big change for me, actually, I mean, I've evolved and learned as a player. I mean, OSR playstyle is new to me, and Dolmenwood was one of my first forays, and that I think combined with playing a knight, right? I felt a lot of like obligations. Like, oh, well, a knight would want to do this. You know, he's obliged to do things for this family. If the daughter is missing of his household, he's got to go do that. If that's a choice, he's gonna, not do anything but that. And if he's on, if he's magically, assigned this mission, he's gonna do that. And he's going to turn away from this and turn away from that. And, I since like one of the things I've learned from playing with these guys and playing with, the OSR in general, like you got to have more freedom within that, right? Like you got to push those boundaries a little bit more and less of that kind of tunnel vision. I feel like the Dolmenwood would have been a lot more like free exploration allowed if, I hadn't kind of taken so much of that to heart and had that kind of guide my view.
Real quick before I respond, Andy Brinkman said hi in chat. Andy is a phenomenal illustrator and art director, including Big Mouth, art director of Big Mouth. Everyone should go look up his art if you have a chance. Really, really talented dude. Thanks for joining us, man. My answer, this might be a bit of like a city country thing, but like, all fantasy is imbued with analogy. And I think, but what I think is interesting with like Dolmenwood versus Arden Vul is, and this isn't like a value judgment, they're both great on their own merits, right? Dolmenwood, it has the whimsy and the capability to sort of lean into sort of like mythic tropes because it doesn't have the same sort of like rigor and historical analogs that Arden Vul has, right? And I think what's really interesting about that is, and maybe like if we'd played Dolmenwood longer, certainly we would have engaged with factions and politics, but I think it would have occurred in a very different way. I think that's like one aspect of it. Another aspect I'll say, and this gets to the meta conversation we're having, which I very much enjoyed about Arden Vul, even if it led me to like prejudge in ways that may not have been appropriate to the actual nature of things, right? The Beastmen, et cetera, but is that there is that analog, and that creates such a touchstone for like richness and that the way that we perceive that space, right? So especially as we get into politics in the campaign space, whether we call them politics, capital P, like we're thinking about that in ways that's really informative. And like Richard's expertise, literally as a professional, can't go understated there because it just creates a whole different dynamic that I had not experienced in a campaign setting before. So I would say that's again, I love them both. I think they're different, right? But I think that's a huge aspect of AV that's worth noting.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, let's see, where are we? Zach, just plain old Zach, says, what was some of the biggest challenges and successes you faced during the campaign? Did those, this is the meat of the question though, did those have any impact in your everyday life? For example, thinking about a character's death. So like in your real, I guess what he's getting at is like in your real life, did any of that stuff actually affect you?
The other way around. I mean, having Squeegee die, I didn't cry or anything like that, but like life got crazy and I wasn't putting nearly as much into the campaign towards the end as that I wanted to be. It wasn't the campaign was affecting my life. It was the other way around. Work got crazy and I couldn't be spending time on the treasure tractor cleaning it up. It's
life happens.
Life. Yeah.
I mean, I have the same answer. It is like the nature of weekly play over such a long period of time, as everyone listening can attest to in their own personal games, right? There is, in a good way, right? It's what's brilliant about putting this on camera, ironically, is that it holds us more responsible to play, right? Sometimes we miss because we have to, but that is the best part of it. It is also hard because there are weeks, months that go by sometimes when one of us has so much on our plate and we are still showing up, but the degree that we can show up fluctuates. I mean, that's just how it goes, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. And no, I mean, I'd say for me personally, like, you know, I had a moment of like this when Goran got eaten by a giant turtle. I got my vengeance, thank God. But I mean, you know, when it comes down to it, man, I mean, I'm just like, we're all really busy in our personal lives outside of this, and I probably spend more time on Discord at my job than I probably should.
Yeah, me too, man. I am way too active.
Mike, you realize this is being broadcast, right?
You know,
like people can see this.
I understand that. Luckily, I don't think my bosses probably watch our channel, but you know, like, I mean, you know, like my job can be like very like intense for short periods of time, and so you know, I'm probably like thinking about rations more than I need to while I'm at work, but that's probably it.
Yeah. For me, like, yeah, I had like, I do put a lot into my characters, but I always kind of see it like as an investment, right? Like,
absolutely.
The more you put in, the more poignant it is when they go. It's not like sad or depressing really, but just like that emotional poignance from a fictional life is really kind of delicious to be able to feel, right? Like that's what TTP, you know, these are, I get my letters mixed up, but that's what these games allow you to do, right? Is like invest a lot of these things, try risk, have risk payoff, or take a bad turn, and then you feel it. But at the same time, it's like the feels that you get in reading a good book, right?
Yeah. Every boss I don't like in real life, I call Garlad now. Sorry.
So there's that. So like, you know, like as you know, bummed out as I'll get about it, like I enjoy that full arc of a character. Like, and you know, I have the Monday morning quarterback things where I'm like, oh, we should have done this, and I forgot about this thing, and I had this, you know, all that stuff.
You're very active on Monday mornings on Discord.
Oh yeah, it sets my brain on fire, man.
I get to work and I'm like,
yeah, me and Matt have had 100-page debate on Monday morning by the time Mike's looked at Discord.
And that's part of like the place where like the real life kind of impact kind of gets, is that, you know, working with these guys, you know, I love these guys, and you know, these are my friends, and still it's so difficult given the distance, right? And the way that you have to are forced to interact via text, right? And Discord and long blocks of text that not everybody has time to read because their lives are busy. You know, that's the biggest challenge, really, because it's like you get all these thoughts and all these feelings, and you're all excited and trying to get all this thing and trying to like communicate it in a brief way that everybody can still read. Like that's like the that for me, that's like the biggest real life implication of it. It's just trying to communicate.
It's a huge thing. It's a grass is greener thing, but I think it would be probably true for all of us to say that it would feel like this would run a lot smoother if we all lived in the same place.
Yeah, true.
Right? Not that it isn't running well, but yeah, like Matt said, it's hard to do a lot of stuff.
It is. It's hard to do the scheduling, but if we all lived in the same place, we'd all still be playing at John's house.
Still be the same thing.
Anyway. So
I think this is better.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Next question. Popper Bear DM, did the invisible stalker kill Garlad? I assume that's for me, unless you guys have answers I don't know about.
I have the same question, John.
Yes. I mapped it out in my head. I knew where Garlad was. I knew what the barriers would be, and there was just no way around it. I don't think that there would be any reason why Garlad would be able to survive being stalked by that stalker. So yes, if they had decided to engage with that, and they would find out that he would have died. The baboons that were still loyal to him in the tower in the eastern part of the ruins would have eventually fallen under Trefko's sway. He was actively trying to recruit all of the baboons, either by force or cajoling. So after some infighting, which I probably would have mapped out on the calendar, would take a little while. Then eventually all of the baboons would have been in Trefko's sway. But yes, Garlad did die by Visible Stalker. Musgra, Darius next. Thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Musgrab asks, what plot thread / faction never got interacted with that you wish they explored more? We kind of talked about this already. For me, would be the Setites. That's my default answer. I really wanted them to do that. Musgrab's sneaking in a second question, but we're going to allow it this time. Also, why did you make Roger so lovable? I don't know if you meant lovable. I think you meant annoying, but that the natural villainous tendencies of the AV Club made them needly to distrust them. We talked about this already with the Five Fingers and Roger, like their hatred of them, not hatred, but just unwillingness to deal with them. A lot of it has to do with me, because I burned you with the Halflings, I burned you with the Wine Dark cohort, with Codswallop, the Innkeepers of the Broken Head, all of that fuels.
And they call us paranoid.
Yeah, and all that fuels paranoia. So I don't blame them for dealing with the Five Fingers in that way. So it's all natural. It's fine. John Logan, what can you tell us about the Five Fingers of Destiny? Who were they? What were they after? That sort of thing. I think we answered this already. In fact, I know we did. So just in case you were not in the earlier part of the stream, they're generally decent people. They would have been helpful, and their prime desire was to discover the secrets of the obelisk, which they, near the end game, had done by the time they encountered them last time in the engine room, and they would have revealed the secrets of that obelisk puzzle to the PCs if they were willing to work with them.
Follow up on that one, John, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Did Roger and his friends survive our mugging? Like, because remember, we left them unconscious in the hall with almost nothing.
Yeah, that one, because it was late game, and I knew that there would be no way. You just weren't focused on ever encountering them again. I never resolved. If I had to make the call right now, I would have said that yes, they survived because it's more fun to interact with them. But I never actually. I never actually formally wrote a note about it.
Please let them know that I say sorry.
Bootleg Matt, what are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give DMs running AV? I already went through that. Let's see. You always seem to be controlling where I feel it. So
no editing.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, there was. He says not sure how much of that. He makes a nice compliment. He says that I always seem to be in control of the session, where where Bootleg Matt often feels like he's sometimes scrambling, and not sure how much of that is creative editing. There's no editing, if you haven't noticed from the stream. Like we break twice for
zero editing. I think that's a really big thing to highlight. We do not edit. That was not that we have a lot of bandwidth to edit, right? But also, I think, sorry to answer for you, John, I think it actually has helped us become better players and be more confident in our decisions, whether they will be received well or not, is to allow every conversation and action to play out. And you guys respond and build a relationship with you. I don't know. I didn't expect that to be a good thing, but it's actually one of the best things for me.
It does work. On occasion, there are smatterings throughout the episodes where we do cut because I'm dealing with something where I have to read something, and it just is bad broadcast. You know what I mean? You don't want to just sit around while I look up something. So on those occasions, and then sometimes during the bathroom breaks, we'll resolve some sort of lingering issue. And then kind of come back fresh, but it's all just, none of it is sort of scripted, right? It's all worked out normally. The other last piece of advice I would give to, and I got a little bit better with this, but I don't think it fully, is that you got to push your players to act rather than plan unceasingly. You can just kind of get into this spiraling hole where you're just discussing all possible options and outcomes. And as a GM, you need to kind of push them to act, come up with a plan, but then just figure it out as you kind of go along. But then that requires trust on the GM's part, trust on the player's part to trust their GM to not screw them over. So you have to be very. You have to reassure your players that you're not going to vindictively screw them over just for enacting their plans, right? So you can kind of figure it out as you go, with the trust knowing that the GM is not going to be looking for holes in your plot, in your plan, right? So
you're not trying to get one over on them.
The holes in the plot thing was something that I think most of us that played when we were kids experienced a lot. You know, like you could sit there at your friend's table and discuss like a whole plan, right? A heist, like whatever. And then as soon as you do it, the DM is just kind of like, well, now this happens. And you're just kind of like, it always felt bad as a kid. And so we have managed to avoid that, I think, a lot in this game.
For sure. Yeah.
Can I add that I think something else that John put on us in order to make the games run smoothly was, that there were jobs that we had as well, not just telling him what we wanted to do, but like keeping track of everything, in the way that you're supposed to as an OSR player. Your ration, it's not his job to track torches. This is not job to worry about rations. We got to have that. Like there's as much of an expectation for us to make the game move along as there is for John as the GM.
If we believe, although you did just say GM, but if we believe that game master isn't an appropriate term, that they're a referee, that they're an equal part of the table, we have to meet that contract by helping them.
Yeah.
That it's not just a language thing.
What would you do as a game referee if your players just weren't tracking that shit? If they just weren't tracking rations, they just weren't tracking focus. No, but you know what I'm saying? Is running a game for the kids, none of them are tracking their torches, So eventually I just kind of be like, you guys are out of torches, and I just call it. And then they're going to be like, so, at that point, the DM can kind of be the heavy a little bit.
Right.
True. It's true. Okay.
Hand Dandler asks a question that we have answered, but it was a good question. What threads, information, and potential paths did the AV Club miss out on in their ultimate screwing of the 5 Fingers of Destiny and Kerbal Khan after the battle of the Dry Raw Chamber? We explained that both of them would have been able to exchange information with you. Kerbal Khan's was much more useful, though, in the long run. He could have been your Triblock. What ended up being Triblock could have been Kerbal Khan, which in the end probably would have been a little bit more satisfying just because you had history with Kerbog, and Trivlock was sort of like an NPC that was introduced at the very end. I thought it would have been cooler, basically, to have Kerbog Khan on the ship rather than Trivlock, but it ended up being cool. Barukadu, top tips you guys have learned about audio video setup. The show's massively improved in that area since you started Dolmenwood. Thank you for that compliment. Yeah, anyone who starts in the channel is going to be in for a little rough, but you got to start somewhere. And we're still
the beginning of the stream.
We're still learning. I'll say from my own personal experience, this is obvious for any sort of YouTube sort of stuff or whatever. Good mics, good cameras, good lighting. We have upgraded all of those in large part thanks to your very kind donations on Patreon. So thank you to all of our patrons for providing us the means by which we were able to upgrade some of this equipment. We're still learning, though. None of us are audio video professionals. I have a little bit of experience from my past life doing it, which I've been able to apply, but it's a learning experience. Now, I'm going to give away a secret to any potential streamers out there, that the true secret to the good audio, besides good mics, you got to have good mics. Number one, don't skimp on mics. Is Video Ninja is the name of the open source software that we use to record our audio tracks on OBS. So that's VDO Ninja. You can just search for it and Google it. It's an amazing open source program. It's a little bit tough with the learning curve about how to kind of do all the settings, but what it allows you to do is to record separate audio tracks in OBS, which you can then mix in your editing software, and which is absolutely key. Because I think most TTRPG streamers who are just not like the super elite like Critical Role and Dimension 20 are basically recording their audio from Discord, which is very lossy. It's not high quality, and it's also only recording one track. So therefore, you may have like the GM's track and then all the other players' track because it's just one other track. And therefore, if there's a hiccup with one player, it's impossible to edit it. Having separate tracks to edit in post is absolutely key. And Video Ninja is 100% free. An amazing Discord community, amazing creator who is very responsive to any questions. And I'm not going to go into detail about how to set it up because I'm not going to lie, it's a learning curve, but it's free. And I took the time to do it, and I've never regretted it since. So that is the secret weapon. And lastly, our last question from our conquerors is from FFEJ. For the players, what was the party's favorite magic item during the campaign? There's a separate question for me about what was your favorite undiscovered or unused magic item that you read during prep but never made its way in. You guys can go ahead. What was your favorite magic item?
Well, obviously, it was the Mask of Toristus, which, as a powerful item, it turned out to not be nearly as powerful as the circlet of Gonor, Iron Circle of Gonor,
which we got almost immediately afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Like it was
we have true seeing once a day. 3 days later, we have true seeing all the time. Yeah, big difference. But the campaign part, the play of the Mask of Toristus and the influence that it had on people observing it and so on, and the kind of the setup it created for Mort moving into, becoming Toristus and taking over the goblins and all that kind of stuff. For me, it was awesome. I loved having it. I loved wearing it. And I mean, the pin was cool, obviously, very cool. And there were some other like lesser items that could have been really like, we made Balloon Wizard out of levitating boots of all things. It's like I had a swimming ring that could have been really interesting in a lot of other scenarios. So there was no shortage of cool items, but I think it was probably my favorite was Toristus.
Yeah, and what a great moment in like. I loved like the because Avaricios found that and was so tempted by it and just like passing that off, and that was like the perfect end for that thing. It was great. I started talking, so
I can go next. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Matt.
Mine's easy. Laurel Sack. There was not a single episode that we didn't use that thing. It was always, I mean, as it's intended, it's always has exactly what you need. And we used it as from the day we found it until the end of the campaign. I don't think there was a time that we ever didn't use it for something.
Yeah, it was super powerful.
Bring chickens, pigs, sandwiches.
And I'll springboard on that. Oh, sorry.
I'll just throw in my least favorite one. Ironically, was one of the best items. I don't know. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but that circlet, the circlet of Gonor.
I was about to say the same thing. Continue, and then I'm going to go after you. Yeah.
I amazing thing. But the thing that I disliked about it the most was how it changed how we interacted with the dungeon in a negative way. Some like discovering secrets is so fun and so rewarding, and there's just no way to get that thing and not wander into every room of the basement and say, just like we did, what secrets do I see?
Yeah.
Instead of like looking and finding and like engaging and delving. So that's my
You basically said everything I would say, but ironically, I think my least favorite is the circlet for that reason. Obviously, on a personal level, I love looking for secrets, and you'll notice a big shift in my play style and my level of, I mean, I was having fun, but my level of engagement on a room-to-room basis, because that removed a core game loop for me. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't love having it, right? I clearly still enjoyed using it. There's
clairvoyance and all that stuff.
But that's big. And here's the thing, I wouldn't not have it now, right? There's other things that advanced in the game that it allowed us. Same with the charm. The charm is incredible. I still resent you guys for not letting me have my pet lizard. How dare you? But that is like a real big like system meta thing. I think conversely, although I never came up with a really good use, maybe I'd modify it a little bit, but I think my favorite item is the magic pebble. If it isn't Laurel Sack, because I tend to love magic items that advance creativity or that are prompts, not conclusions. A magic item that creates more complication or more thought, I think, is the best way to write magic items for games. Now, I don't know how that would manifest for the magic, pebble. Maybe if it stuck to whatever whatever. I don't know. Maybe it would return blah blah blah. But that's what I would say.
I'm okay. So it's my turn. So I'm a little bit more of a mixed bag on the circlet, because one of my favorite moments was finding that treasure trove in the gladiator school, which all the fun would have gone out of that if we'd had the circlet. Then we would have just immediately seen the secret, panel. So I get that. And I will say that getting it at the point we did during the campaign when we needed to up the tempo of our exploration made that a lot easier. Like it made the campaign switch from like engaging in each room as like an exploration thing to let's start accomplishing bigger tasks. So I'm a little bit of a mixed bag on that. Frankly, I don't really have a favorite magical item. In particular, I do miss Laurel's cloak. I thought that was a huge loss when we lost that guy. And I do think that the fact that we stumbled onto the Laurel stash as early in the game as we did was probably one of the fundamental things for our campaign, because the sack, the pin, which was still to the end of the game the most powerful magical weapon we had, and the cloak just completely changed our ability to interact with the dungeon.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. For me, this is about what undiscovered or unused magic item. Again, I haven't read the entire thing, so I'm sure there's lots of other cool items, but as far as ones that they interact with but didn't actually use, in the episode where Goran goes naked in the Well of Light level, and he encountered like a box that was chained in the middle of the room. Remember? And you noped out of there. That was a nasty, but potentially very, very cool item if you would manage to wrangle it. It's called the Coffer of Zox, and it can suck you into the negative material plane. It can also, sort of like a Ghostbuster trap, it can trap undead, but it can only trap up to a certain amount, I think 17 undead. And if you trap like an 18th undead creature in there, it will explode. And
they all come out?
And they all come out.
Oh,
It was one of those items that when David started with Upior as a necromancer, I was really hoping that you'd go back there, because I was looking forward to like how you would incorporate the Coffer of Zox as like an item that you could have used to control undead.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Could you also release them like without hitting that 18th? You could just let them out.
I believe you
so
could.
You could put that box down in the middle of Goblin Town and let out like Eustace and the other scary one. Like you could just let them all out and just let them go to town.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to look it up, but I would have ruled that would have been possible. The other one was Pohl's Treatise on Scrying, the one that took Lothar's eyes.
Yeah.
I wanted you guys so bad to take it and use it offensively.
Yes, me too.
I really wanted you guys to use it as a weapon. Yeah.
Right. We did use it on
Nefret.
But we were too afraid to use it more, I think, which makes sense. But I really wanted to use it. Yeah.
Leaving it as a trap was brilliant.
Yeah. Could I have gotten my eyeballs back at some point?
So that was another thing too, was by the description, whoever gets their eyes taken, those eyes will appear in a bowl by the publish module in a random place in the dungeon. Now, of course, to me, that's like, I'm not going to like roll and like just be like, it's here, and like maybe they'll pass by. I was looking for like a cool opportunity to like put it in like a cool place. You know what I mean? But it was a combination of me not really finding a good place and then me forgetting about it. I just kind of forgot. That's funny. Or I definitely would have kind of capstoned the campaign with like you encountering your eyes again. I thought,
your eyeballs are in the goblin privy. Sorry,
I've been peeing on it for like weeks.
Yeah. So so we're getting towards the end here. That was a lot of good questions. Thank you to all of our congers for asking
Very
those.
cool.
I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts about the campaign. Arden Vul in general.
Any final questions? Yeah.
Do we want to answer a couple of questions from the chat, or do we have time to do that?
Yeah, sure. We can
maybe like 5 minutes or something.
Yeah. If
all right, on your marks, get set, tight.
we do have announcements after this, for what it's worth.
Yes, we do have important announcements to make. Yeah.
Somebody was it Wormsblood asked about leaving graffiti on the stairs, and I answered the Touristus loves chocolate. Matt wrote, if you see a golden torch with a hand attached, grab it. What do you think, Mike and David? You want to leave some graffiti behind?
I got to pee, but
I would put a recipe for turtle soup.
Nice.
What graffiti would I leave behind? Oh man, never trust a regent. I don't know.
Never trust the regent. Right on.
John's peeing. I'm peeing too. Bye.
All right. We'll banter while they do the biz.
I mean, I just want to say, I know we've said it before, but I want to say it again, which is that something I did not expect when we started streaming our games was the support and reaction that we've gotten from all of you listeners, particularly the people who are, dedicated to come to a live stream. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it makes us a lot more fun. And some of the times when I've been so stressed out with work or whatever, and I'm not putting time into the game, it'd be really easy to be like, yeah, I'm going to blow it off. But like, there's like this sort of, I don't want to call it an obligation, but more of like a, my goblinly duty or something like that, that
you're
show
part
up
of a community.
It's part of a community. It's more fun for everybody if we put in the effort. And so it gets you through some humps where you're like, I'm so tired and sick, but I really want to play tonight, because it'll be great. So anyway, thank you.
I agree, Ted. And I would just follow up with like, parasocial is used as a derogatory term. I don't think it's inappropriate, right? Parasocial is used to imply sort of like a one-directional version of community. And while obviously we all have our own lives, right? We're on a show and whatever. I think that sense of mutuality, that sense of interaction has been, like Ted said, a huge. I mean, I told the guys earlier this week, reading the comments on our final episode, I was like, anytime I'm having a total shit week and being a dickhead, just remind me to go read the comments because it's going to put me in a better mood. That's not me being insincere. It is truly a huge aspect of what keeps me going for sure.
Particularly
any other questions?
Episode 114, the comments we've gotten on our last AV,
so sweet,
tripled the number of usual interactions, and you guys are great.
The poems were great too. I love all of our poet laureates.
Very cool.
I still read the Snell poem so much.
Sorry if I missed posting some questions while I was in the bathroom, but
sure.
But here's one from Michael J. Bojdis. John, one could sense your excitement when the AV Club first encountered the sci-fi elements of the campaign. What was your original design for them finding sci-fi lore through factions? What was my original design? I wasn't planning on them doing before they found the deep space containment unit. I wasn't anticipating that may never have come up. They may have never interacted with it, and I would have been fine with it because there's so many other cool kind of capstone elements to make a climax to the campaign. But I was so psyched when they actually went into the Hall of Shrines, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to find it. And this is going to change everything. And I think the way that Rick sort of designed these sort of phased modules of, very much reminiscent of Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I know it rubs a lot of people the wrong way with introducing sci-fi into their fantasy, but I love it. So when I originally purchased AV and I read that was sort of one of the big secrets, I was like, that's so fucking rad. So I was very pleased that the player's decision to focus at the end run was to be the shuttle. I was very pleased that was the choice that they made. I was very happy with it.
Yeah. So, I think for me, one of the major regrets is that I never got to light somebody up with that laser rifle. 11 episodes of trying to get a laser gun, and then I get it, and then there's no target.
You had a single opportunity that relates to another question. I see at the end. You could have shot
Darren Hardaway for the donation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh yes,
I
Darren. Thank you so much.
Mike, that you shot Upior for killing Trivlock there.
That's what I actually was. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to end on such a downer.
Yeah. Someone did ask if I had been planning on killing Trivlock all along, and I'll be brief. As with all of my knifings, I, like Matt said, have thought about it more than I telegraph on stream. It's just
a little worrying.
Doesn't make sense to But I've said it before. It's nuanced, obviously. But Trevlock, as part of the Radishvans, as part of a alien race that has servitor, aka slave races, many of them, a caste society, but not just a caste society, a slave society. Was not, in my mind, a conducive ally, right? From a pragmatic standpoint, or if we're talking D&D ethics, not someone who I wanted to be my friend. There is obviously a use for them, but my use of the scroll to notify the ship was a plan. Which was, that's basically it, right? It is kind of a bleak last moment. I didn't actually think that was going to be the last action of the game. If you were watching, I was like, "Oh, we're over. Oh shit," but it is what it is. And it may be that things would have changed in our relationship if we extrapolated further. But the only other thing I would say is part of that too in my mind, because obviously Trevlock was polite enough, a little power hungry, but was that Trevlock had been asleep. So Trevlock's social mores, there may have been older Radishvans, like the Sunscarred Knight leader, who had changed their perspective on the world in such a way that would make them redeemable, right? I think everyone's worthy of redemption. But Trevelok, like yesterday, was engaging in that society. So it wasn't, while we felt it as immediate, it wasn't in my mind. Again, extrapolating. Sorry, that was longer than I meant, but that's the answer to that question.
A lot of reasoning for your murders.
Yeah,
that's what I do, baby.
Plus, it's also fun to stab people in the back of the neck.
Just like to leave a lot of hats on the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
any other cues?
Yeah. Let's see. What do we have here? This is Dave Rosser Jr. Y'all have any headcanon about what happened? Dave, we answered that question already. Where have you been?
Dave's been here the whole time.
No, you're probably referencing like the main characters, I suppose, right? Like, I don't. Well, with David's twist at the very end, that opens up a whole plethora of possible scenarios for the spaceship guys. I don't know if you guys had any like a headcanon about.
I have some thoughts, but everyone else go first because I just talked a bunch.
Like I went back and forth on like what Wolford's reaction would have been to this murder right in front of him. Probably to cut the wizard's hands off. So he wouldn't do that again.
Thank you, Arno.
Stop touching yourself.
But no, like I think his focus was like he's really looking forward to being heavily criticized and berated by his new girlfriend.
I love it.
You brought me on this stupid
like,
trip.
Exactly. You promised me the stars, and there's like murder and blood everywhere. I don't even know what the thing is.
The real. I mean, if the murder hadn't happened, the real postscript is all of us having like recreating our college roommate scenario and listening to Wolford and his girlfriend argue in the room and pretending like we aren't hearing it. Oh, they're at it again. I guess I'll watch the dishes.
Hammer and tongs.
I had all these guys flying off into space is that they end up in like the cantina scene in Star Wars or some other sci-fi movie somewhere, right, where the story's happening in front. In the back you can see, there's Wolford with his messed up face and Lothar with his eye and everything, and they're in the back drinking, and if they're an Easter egg in the movie somewhere.
Right.
I gotta ask. So this is actually a good question. Was there anything more to that Hecate statue inside the stash? The stash. This is from Mr. Farquad.
Put that up. Thank you at most for the donation. The deal with that. Oh yeah. So that's a good question. It's been so long since I looked at that. I would actually have to look it up again. I don't think it caused. I mean, I might be wrong.
That's a good question too. While he's looking it up, I'm going to answer real quick. It's not a happily ever after so much as kind of an unrealized character note, but I really liked when I was thinking about Upir at the beginning, which is why, like on the character sheet, I said he had like a weird scent of flowers and stuff like that, and it came off very sinister anytime I tried to implement it. But I really liked the idea of a necromancer as a custodian of the dead, as someone who believes in death as a natural process and would also see resurrection and even divine resurrection as a form of transgression. So there's friction there with things like Thoth or whatever. And for that reason, I intentionally never took nor wanted to take any sort of undead minion spells, which didn't come into play, but would have been a conversation. I only wanted to take spells that like affected the living in one way or another. And so that would have been like the happily ever after for him is sort of like whatever version of him being that gentle custodian looks like. That's what I would say.
Custodian of the dead and also creator of the dead, because
in fairness, Onweir haunted Upir's spirit in the last moment, but that was the only like really, I think, overt Upir kill. I think Onweir was just really haunting everyone's memory there for the rest of the campaign. But yeah.
So I found the answer there for Mr. Farquad. So the statue underneath the pyramid was a Pukelmander, which you can find it in different places. They're 10-foot tall idols. If you're looking at the PDF, you can see what I'm reading from right here. If you put what's called a tear of Calquette, which is like a jewel sacred to the Hecate, into the eyes of a Pukelmander, it will actually secrete a liquid that's called the sweat of Rimak Isfet, who is the other. You've probably heard that name before. That Ichor that was in the Deep Space Containment Unit was like the Ichor. Yeah, so that's another one of the demon gods of the Hecate. And you could get.
Do we have a tier?
I don't think you did. But needless to say, they're like they're very powerful stuff, but also very dangerous to handle, that sort of thing. So if you don't mess with it, nothing really happens. But if you want to experiment, you could get some nasty stuff. So
all right,
yeah, good shit. Okay, so I think that'll do it for. One last thing. This is just completely out of left field, but it's something that I've been wanting to reveal to everybody for ages, since the beginning of Dolmenwood. It's just a small little Easter egg, but I was hoping that a user at some point, somewhere, would catch on to it, but it's pretty subtle. If you ever wanted to know that there was a character death of a retainer or a PC in an episode, it was actually... I actually foreshadowed it on each upload, because the thumbnail of each episode in which someone died is surrounded in red. It's subtle. I didn't want to make it too clear, but the border of each thumbnail in which a person dies of importance, like a retainer or a PC, those thumbnails are outlined in red. So you can go back and look at the list, and you will see it measures up.
Watch us die.
So just a little Easter egg that that you can take to the bank with you. Okay, so let's start the hype train.
Like another video list of just dead character videos.
Dead character hype train. Yeah. There you go. Okay, hype train.
Hype train, because I know this is what you've all. None of you guys give a shit about that AV campaign. You want to know what 3D6 Detail is doing next. Well, the obvious answer is Dallas the RPG. I mean, that goes without saying, right? That is going to be our next thing. No, that is not actually the case, but
it was all a dream.
We can keep that meme going. So we have a couple of things to announce. The first one is that due to popular demand, and because we now have the infrastructure available within our organization here to be able to do this, and because of our patrons who have throughout the years have been generously donating every single month,
very generous,
to be frankly honest, for very little. Like, you've gotten a couple of access to secret channels, just some fun roles in Discord, things like that. On occasion, a random early release and stuff like that. But in general, you just, out of the goodness of your heart, just wanting to support us, you have been paying every month, and we feel the need to repay that with something substantive. So
nudes from me.
Yes. So
a nude stream. No. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, John.
Opposite direction.
So in that regard, we want to release something that is a Patreon only exclusive campaign. For the foreseeable future, we have no plans at the current moment to release it to the public. This will be for paying Patreon members only. They will be returned to Dolmenwood. We will be going back. We will be attempting to record this twice a month. It will be basically it won't be released as often as a primary campaign like Arden Vul, but it will be something that patrons can enjoy, and we hope that any of you who are excited about Dolmenwood or excited about our return to it will think about joining the Patreon, because it will be exclusive to paying members of the Patreon. We are all extremely excited to go back to Dolmenwood. Not only because we, as I know the general opinion is that I cut that thing way too short. So
you bastard.
So we're gonna
still alive.
We're gonna be going back, where it will also be different than the first campaign as well, because we will not be using OSE. We'll be using the actual Dolmenwood game, which is just basically Gavin's homebrewed version of OSE. But Gavin's the guy who created OSE, so we're going to place our faith in him.
Thank you, Gavin.
And we're very much looking forward to that. So everyone can get hyped for that, and we're looking forward to going back. In addition, we're also going to be doing... So... yeah, that should be pretty fun.
I love it. Yeah, I think everyone will be really excited about it.
That's going to be so cool. I wanted
to wait to play a Moss Dwarf. I'm going to be really excited about that. It's going to be super exciting.
We are going to have to buy some cowboy hats, unfortunately. I know costuming on a stream is not usually.
Wait, I did.
That's cool. There he is.
Oh, there he is. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited about.
You can all look forward to that Dallas game coming down the street.
Yeah, Dallas will be a lot of fun. I cannot wait.
And if we're doing Dallas, does that mean that like AV was the dream, or Dallas is the dream of the guys on the ship? Like
a question to be
answered. It's all in that St. Elsewhere snow globe.
Yeah,
that's all. It's all in there.
Yeah.
So inside of a snow globe.
Yeah, so I hope everyone is as excited as we are to get those on the road. And thank you everyone for joining us during this live stream. We had way more people joining us than I thought, which is fantastic. If you're, and this will be of course available on the channel in the future. So if you weren't able to make the live stream, it will be available to you, as you already aware, because you're watching it. But thank you everyone for your continued support. As I said during the last episode, we could not have done it without you. Your constant positive reinforcement has been just really, really keeping us going, and we really do appreciate it. And we can't wait for what the future holds. So thank you everyone for watching 114 episodes worth of Arden Vul.
Oh man, talk about dedication.
Thanks to Richard Barton and
thank you, Richard Barton.
Yes, 100% to all the creative team behind the halls of Arden Vul and the creative team at Necrotic Gnome for OSC. And
thanks to VDO Ninja.
And VDO Ninja, our secret weapon. So thanks everyone. We really do appreciate it, and we look forward to future adventures. Everyone take care. Bye.
Thanks so much, guys.
Everybody.
Thanks, John.
Have a good Sunday.